Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If, this side. Today we will be seeing, what if Deku becomes teaching assistant? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. Aizawa put you on a training regimen that he wants you to follow. Once you part ways with your students, you change into your spare gym clothes and head for the fitness center to meet up with Shinsu. Now that the underground hero has taken on mentoring the GD student, the kid is allowed to stay longer after school. That's why the two of you don't have to worry about rushing in order to do everything on the lists Aizawa made for you two, and can dedicate a proper amount of time to each exercise written on the lists. After you both finally finish up with your exercises for the day, you and Shinsu part ways, with you heading for Heights Alliance while Shinsu goes to the train station. When you later arrive at the dorm, Yaoyorozu and Todoroki both greet you from the living room. By the looks of it, they're playing Smash Brothers. Smiling, you wave at them before heading for your room to get a change of clothes. You want to take a quick shower before starting on dinner. By the time you finish getting cleaned up, the kids are already waiting for you in the kitchen. It would seem they've both come to really enjoy cooking together with you, so it has become a tradition of sorts. A part of you wonders if this will continue once the rest of the class moves in. Cooking with 21 people sounds difficult yet incredibly entertaining. Surprisingly enough, the pillow fort is still up and in pretty good shape. That's where the three of you head after dinner, so you all can play more Pokemon since the students didn't get much homework on their first day back. Later on, when you ask them how long they want to keep the pillow fort up, Todoroki gives you the most disappointed look. It has to be taken down. Apparently, you failed to mention that pillow forts aren't typically permanent additions to homes. When you look at Yaoyorozu, she has the nerve to pout at you while batting her pretty little eyes. Well, you know when you're beat. No, it can stay as long as everyone is fine with it. Most people get tired of pillow forts after a while, so I thought maybe you guys would want to clean up soon. When the students say they want to keep it, you go along with it, and that's how the dorm ends up with a permanent pillow fort in the living room. Of course, at the end of the week, you take it down, so you can wash everything. Thankfully, the kids don't mind since that means they can participate in putting it back up. At that moment, all you can think is that the principal made a grave mistake, making you the sole adult figure in the dorm. If he thought you'd be the strict, rule-abiding type, Nedzu was wrong, very wrong. The next morning, before homeroom begins, you receive a text from Ingenium. All it consists of is a picture of his brother, looking around 5 years old, wearing a tuxedo. You find yourself cooing at the sight of Ida's little bow tie. He looks absolutely adorable. "Whatcha looking at, sensei?" Ashido asks curiously, wearing a big grin. Noticing that you have the majority of the students' attention, you decide to have a little fun at Ida's expense. I found out recently that Ingenium really loves sharing pictures of his adorable little brother. He just sent me one of a tiny Ida in a tux. He's so cute. Ida immediately jumps out of his seat before slamming his hands on his desk. Nissan said he'd stop that. Why is he still doing this? Yaoyorozu can't stop giggling. Pretty much all the girls are having a similar reaction. The boys are split between laughing and giving their embarrassed classmates sympathetic looks. You shrug. While I didn't ask for more, I won't complain. You were a super cute kid, Ida. Your brother obviously knows this and wants everyone else to know as well. The bespectacled boy flushes as he returns to his seat and fiddles with his glasses. Even so, sending pictures to a teacher of mine, of all people, is beyond unacceptable. I will have a talk with him after school. Kaminari smirks mischievously. Hey, sensei, how about sharing the photos so everyone can see our class prees looking adorable? Ida starts wildly waving his hands. Please do not, sensei. The last thing I want is for more people to see them. I'll do anything to prevent this from occurring. Realizing the opportunity the blue-haired boy just provided you, you open your mouth to respond but hesitate. Can you really say it to such a sweet boy like Ada? Zero immediately realizes what's going through your head and grins broadly. Come on, sensei. You gotta do it. You can't waste this opportunity. You hang your head. I know, but to say it to Ida, of all people, I don't know if I can do it to him. Several students catch on and start snickering while Ida remains completely clueless. Before you can say anything else, another voice speaks up. Then, perish. The room instantly goes quiet, and every eye lands on Todoroki, who just tilts his head in response. That's how the meme goes. Right, sensei, Jiru just gapes. Oh my god. Sensei taught Todoroki about memes. At her comment, you lose it and promptly burst into a fit of laughter. Most of the class follows your example, but you're probably the loudest along with Yaoyorozu, who helped you teach Todoroki about memes. You're literally wheezing, trying to catch your breath, but you can't stop laughing. Every time you see Todoroki's blank, confused face, you want to keep laughing. He's seriously way too cute. Despite his confusion, Ida does his best to restore order to the classroom, while Yaoyorozu tries to explain to Todoroki why everyone is laughing. When Aizawa finally arrives, the room goes quiet except for Yu, who's still quietly wheezing. He raises an eyebrow at Yu before turning to the class for an explanation. Asui is the first one to speak up about what happened. After she finishes her explanation, Aizawa tiredly rubs his eyes. It's bad enough you keep sending me those stupid memes. Now, you're showing them to Todoroki. Kirishima stares at you with awe. You're even trying to teach Aizawa-sensei about memes. Before you can reply, Todoroki looks at the older teacher and nods. Same hat. And that's how you end up on the floor laughing uncontrollably. Aizawa releases the weariest sigh you've ever heard before crawling into his sleeping bag. I haven't had enough sleep to deal with this. You're in charge. Don't die, or you'll traumatize the students. The older man promptly falls asleep while you're trying and failing to stop laughing. You can hear the kids attempting to contain their amusement so that they don't wake up the underground hero. Well, you should probably do the same. You're having a really tough time. Todoroki. You wheeze as you try to stop yourself from laughing. I'm so freaking proud of you. Once I remember how to breathe, I'll give you a sticker for making my day. Todoroki tilts his head. Candy too? Several students are staring at him like they've never seen the boy before, while others are clutching their stomachs from laughing too strong. You're acting much like the latter group. Wiping the tears of mirth from your eyes, you grin in his direction. Of course, that's not the only thing you plan to do. After all, considering the fact that the smile he put on your face during homeroom remains firmly in place throughout that PRD, you think he definitely deserves something more. That's why you intend to make a soba bento for Todoroki's lunch today, knowing he'll enjoy such a special surprise. Making people smile is an important quality all heroes should have, and you think the ice user is slowly but surely honing his ability to do so. While it's obvious he's inexperienced, Todoroki is doing his best to learn, and you're incredibly proud of him for that. In such a short span of time, he has come a long way, and you know he'll continue to improve from here on out. That's why you really can't wait to see what the future has in store for him. About a week later, you are surprised to find out that classes 1A and 1B will be doing some joint training. By the looks of it, the teachers plan on having the classes spar with each other in one-on-one matches. A part of you wonders if this has anything to do with you asking Nedzu the other day why the two classes don't interact very much. Rather than work up the rivalry between the two groups, shouldn't they be working together more since they're students representing the same school? It was just an honest question. I really didn't think he'd actually do something about it. You muse. Now, I know why he got that sly look on his face after I asked him about it. Monoma's strange laughter draws you out of your thoughts. It looks like it's finally time to put Class 1A in their place. We won't have you looking down on us any longer. Kaminari jabs a finger at the other blonde. We're not looking down on anyone. Besides, we're the ones who should be complaining. You're the guys who kidnapped our sensei. Several of his classmates nod and cry out in agreement, while the Class 1B students pointedly don't look in your direction. Even Monoma makes a face as he averts his gaze. Considering their pale expressions, you wonder what exactly Vlad King did to them as punishment. You hope he wasn't too strong on them since it really was mainly Monoma's fault. When your thoughts drift toward Monoma, your gaze unconsciously moves to rest on him. What's up with his rivalry with Class 1A anyway? It partly makes sense, considering how Vladson is around Aizawa-san, but at least, those two can be civil. I don't think I've ever seen Monoma act even remotely friendly toward the 1A students. Why hasn't Vlad King done something to try to stop this? This can't be healthy behavior. Sure, rivalries are good and all, but this is over the top, even for you. That's when you get an idea. Maybe there's something you can do about the copycat's attitude. When you look toward Aizawa, you grin, hoping he'll see that you have something you want to try. After a few seconds, he rolls his eyes, but he doesn't say no. So, you count that as a go-ahead. That's why you walk over to the Class 1B kids and drape an arm across a very surprised Monoma's shoulders. You can feel several eyes on you as you look toward Vlad King. For this exercise, can I have this guy? I promise to return him later. Vlad King tilts his head and stares for several seconds before nodding. Sure. Obviously, you got something in mind, so go ahead. It might be good for him. Your grin grows while Monoma just gapes at his homeroom teacher, giving him a betrayed look. Of course, he doesn't actually very complain, obviously knowing it would do him no good. Aizawa jabs a thumb toward his class standing behind him. Take one of them too, so we'll have an even number. Nodding, you turn to look at your students while keeping your grip on the blonde beside you. With the exception of Mainta, who appears terrified, Class 1A looks curious about whatever you're planning. Some are even grinning, probably hoping they'll get picked. After a few minutes of deliberation, you let your eyes rest on Ojiro, who blinks in surprise. Ajiro, will you come with me please? He immediately nods his head and walks over to you. Of course, sensei. You move your arm from Monoma's shoulders to link with his arm and start dragging him away from the other students. All right. 2 blondes for the price of 1. This should be fun. Ajiro chuckles while the other blonde looks like he's trying to get help from his classmates. Too bad none of them seem interested in coming to his aid. Some do shoot him some sympathetic looks, though. When you walk past Minta and take notice of his scared expression, you roll your eyes. Minta, quit looking like I'm taking these 2 away to kill them. I'm not that bad. Besides, Ajiro is one of the most well-behaved students in your class. Why would I want to kill him? The martial artist grins, obviously amused by your comment. I'm glad I'm not on your hit list, sensei. Kirishima starts waving his hand eagerly. What about me, sensei? I'm not on the list, right? His words make you pause, and you turn to give him your full attention. Of course not. Rather, anyone who puts you on their list automatically goes on mine. Anyone who goes after the Sunshine Children shall be punished severely. The redhead looks so touched he actually gets teary-eyed. So, does Tetsu for some reason? The rest of Class 1A are either grinning or chuckling at your remark, aside from Bakugo and Todoroki, of course. While the homeroom teachers start splitting the 38 remaining students up into pairs, you guide the 2 students with you over to an area far enough to be out of everyone's way, but close enough that their teachers can still see them. Monoma eyes you suspiciously. This isn't further payback for what happened last time, is it? I would like to think I've been punished enough. You shake your head as you release his arm. Nope, I'm not mad about that anymore. I picked you in particular for this because I thought this could be a good educational experience for you. Ajiro tilts his head curiously while the other blonde stares at you with obvious confusion. So, I take it this won't be just a sparring match like the others. The corners of your lips tug upwards as you wink at him. Exactly. The use of quirks won't be allowed here, so we'll just be fighting hand-to-hand. Monoma opens his mouth to speak, but suddenly pauses. His eyebrows furrow. Wait. Did you just say we? Your grin grows at the students' confused expressions. Yep. While the 2 of you will be fighting each other, you'll also fight me. We'll take turns with who we fight. Noticing their hesitant expressions, you roll your eyes. I may not be a pro hero, but I've been learning how to fight from Aizawa-san. I promise it won't end as badly as you're both thinking. After a beat, you add, well, maybe my fight with Ajiro will end badly for me, but that's because I've got nothing against years of martial arts experience. The aforementioned boy rubs his neck bashfully. I haven't fought without using my tail in a while, so I'm sure it won't be as bad as you're imagining. Snorting, you gently swat at his arm. Now, you're just being modest. No matter what you say, you're gonna kick both of our asses. The only thing I don't know is how long it'll take you. A light flush colors his cheeks while Monoma scowls. I fail to see how this will be an educational experience. If anything, it seems like you purposefully put me against someone I'd be at a disadvantage against. Is this how you show favoritism toward Class 1A? Ajiro frowns as he narrows his eyes at the other blonde. Unsensei isn't like that. If she believes this will be good for you, then I trust her. I'm sure she had a good reason for choosing us both. You pat him on the arm before directing your attention to Monoma. I'll admit I partly chose Ajiro because of his quirk because I didn't think you could copy it. I wanted to see how you fight without your quirk. From what I read in your files, you're very skilled with it, but you haven't had much hand-to-hand experience. His posture stiffens when you point at him. Tell me, how do you plan on handling a villain who has a quirk that you can't make use of? What if you're stuck fighting that villain all by yourself without a quirk to fight with? What would you do? Monoma goes quiet as he stares at you with wide eyes. When he remains silent for several seconds, you reach over to roughly ruffle his hair, making him jerk in surprise. I didn't choose the 2 of you with the intention of showing favoritism. I think fighting an opponent like Ajiro would be really good for you. I'm sure you'll be able to learn a lot. Pulling your hand back, you give the 1B student a wide grin. Plus, Ajiro is one of my most well-behaved students. For whatever reason, you have a problem with Class 1A. I thought he'd be the best choice since he's always very respectful. He's the perfect person to represent my class. When you turn toward Ajiro, you see his very flustered expression, and your grin grows in response. To be honest, since me and Monoma are way more inexperienced compared to you, this might not be the kind of challenge you were hoping for, but I might can give you a fun fight at the end by using my quirk. His eyes widen with surprise. Your quirk? I didn't know you could use it in battle. What exactly is your quirk? You blink at the question before looking toward Monoma, who crosses his arms. You don't know? I figured Vlatsin would have already told you at this point. He averts his gaze. He told us the basics, but if we wanted to know your quirk, he said we had to ask you personally. An amused huff passes your lips. Of course. Yes, this is your second chance at gathering info. Well, since you asked normally, I don't mind telling you. My quirk allows me to receive visions of the future. They happen at random, so I don't really have much control over it. However, I recently discovered I could control it in battle by predicting my opponent's movements. I can see several seconds in advance in regards to what attack they'll use. Ojiro grins. That's amazing, sensei. So, if you used it against me, you'd know what move I'd use before I even tried to make it. That really would be an interesting fight. It's not often you can come across someone who can predict your moves in battle. Nodding, you motion for Monoma to stand across from you, so the two of you can fight first. Yeah, but it has its drawbacks. So, I don't want to use it for too long, which means I won't be able to give you a very long fight. He shakes his head. That's fine. I understand. I'm grateful that you're willing to use it to help me improve. Having to go against someone who can predict my moves would be great training. Noticing Monoma's disgruntled expression, you roll your eyes. He's not looking down on you, Monoma. Relax. If you want to beat him so bad, then defeat me first. Winner goes against Ojiro. As expected, while you easily move into a fighting stance, the blonde across from you is a little more awkward with his. It's amazing Vlad King hasn't already pounded some hand-to-hand skills into the boy by this point, considering the fatal flaw of Monoma's quirk. When Ojiro signals for the match to begin, Monoma remains still as he analyzes you. Since he won't move, you decide to bring the fight to him. He obviously wasn't expecting you to move so fast, judging by the way his eyes widen. Still, Monoma does manage to block your punch using both of his arms, so you have to give him credit for responding quickly. However, by focusing so much on your punch, the blonde fails to notice your leg sweeping under his until it's too late. He lands on his back with a loud thwack, and you can't help but wince. You alright, Monoma? Monoma grunts as he moves to sit up. When you offer him a hand, he hesitates briefly before moving to grab it. After he's back on his feet, you gently pat off the dirt clinging to his back. That first block was good, but when you used both arms to block my punch, you hampered your vision, making it easy to blindside you with a kick. When you're fighting against someone faster than you, keeping your eyes on them is very important. Losing sight of them can mean your defeat if you're not careful. Eyes averted, he nods as he murmurs, "Yes, sensei." Not liking his subdued attitude, you aim a quick jab at both of his sides right above his hips, eliciting a loud squeal from the boy. You grin as he stares at you with eyes wide as saucers. There we go. You should show more energy like that, Monoma. Don't look so down. I know you lost, but that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You're here to learn not to win every single battle. I don't expect you to be perfect instantly. Just do your best, okay? All Monoma does is dumbly stare for several seconds. When he hears Ojiro quietly laughing, the copycat jerks back to life. He shoots the other blonde a quick glare before returning his attention to you. I understand, sensei. I'll do my best. For some reason, Monoma flushes when your grin grows. Rather than question him, you motion for Ojiro to take his place. As expected, the match does not last very long. Not only does the martial artist hit strong, he hits fast. Not even a full minute later, you're on your back, wincing because of your rough landing. Ojiro gives you a worried look, but you smile reassuringly as you accept his help to stand. I'm fine, Ojiro. You did very well. Even without your tail, you're a hell of an opponent. He smiles bashfully. It was strange not using it at first, but I admit it's a nice change of pace. It's good to change up my routine every now and then. Now, it's time for the two students to spar. Monoma has a determined look in his eyes while Ojiro is as calm as ever. The martial artist is the first to move once you announce the beginning of the match. Surprisingly, Monoma dodges the first punch aimed at him, but his own attack is quickly blocked. Before the 1B student can pull away, Ojiro grabs a hold of his wrist and pulls him over his shoulder, forcing Monoma on his back within seconds. You're pleasantly surprised when the copycat accepts the hand offered to him by his opponent. Looks like you made the right choice after all, picking the martial artist for this exercise. Several more spars are held with Ojiro winning all of his. You manage to beat Monoma every time, but with each battle, he improves, giving you more of a challenge. It's honestly very impressive how quick a learner he is. Once you've made sure both students have had enough matches, you motion Ojiro to stand across from you. Alright, I'll use my quirk, but I don't know if I can last more than a few minutes. I really don't want to deal with the drawback of using it for too long. A concerned frown forms on his lips. If it'll hurt you, you don't have to do this, sensei. I don't want you to force yourself for my sake. You shake your head. No, I want to provide some kind of a challenge for you. Besides, this is good practice for me too. I need to get used to using it. Taking a deep breath, you focus your mind to bring forth your quirk. It doesn't take long before you feel a familiar tingling sensation washing over your senses. Keeping your eyes closed, you grin in Ajiro's direction. All right. Attack whenever you're ready. He only hesitates for a second before dashing forward to aim a kick at your side. You immediately bring up your arm to block and push him back, holding back a wince as you do. Predicting his moves doesn't make them any less painful when you block them, unfortunately. The martial artist then jumps over you to attack you from behind. You respond by diving to the side to dodge his punch. For every attack he launches, you dodge, just barely getting by for most of them. Right as you're about to move to avoid another of his punches, Momo calls out to let you both know the time limit you set up earlier has passed. You and Ajiro both freeze before you quickly deactivate your quirk. As expected, a headache hits you at full force as soon as you stop using your quirk. You don't even bother opening your eyes, knowing what'll happen. Can one of you get the sunglasses in my bag? You ask. My quirk makes my eyes really sensitive to light after I use it like this. While you hear movement heading toward the direction of your bag, a hand lands on your shoulder, making you jump in surprise. There's a guilty tone in Ajiro's voice when he apologizes. Sorry, sensei. I should have said something first. Are you okay? Before you can respond, you feel another hand grab onto yours to give you your sunglasses. Apparently, Momo was the one to go get them for you. Here are your sunglasses, sensei. After both boys pull away, you slip on the sunglasses before opening your eyes. You release a sigh of relief before giving Momo a grateful smile. Thanks, Momo. While the copycat quickly averts his eyes, you turn to smile at Ajiro. I'm all right, Ajiro. The headache won't last that long, especially once I take some pain reliever. My eyes will return to normal after a while too. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a longer fight. He quickly shakes his head. No need to apologize. It may have been short, but I enjoyed it. It's the first time in a while someone has managed to dodge so many of my attacks. The corners of his lips tug upwards. After so many times of coming so close to hitting you, I realized I should start working more on my speed. After all, even if you can predict my moves, if I'm fast enough, then there's a chance you can't stop them, right? A wide grin forms on your lips. Exactly. In this situation, speed is key. Even if I know what you'll do, that doesn't mean anything if my body is too slow to react to your attacks. Nice observation, Ajiro. Ajiro smiles bashfully as he rubs the back of his neck. Meanwhile, Momo is sporting a calculative expression. When I was watching you, I noticed that you were strictly on defense. Does that mean you can't use your quirk for offensive purposes? You blink at the question before scratching your head. As of right now, no. Defense just means I'm predicting my opponent's moves. To use it for offense, that means I have to not only predict how my opponent will attack, but also how they'll react to my own attack. Technically, it's possible, but that'll require some work, I think. He nods thoughtfully. For some reason, his expression then turns hesitant. While I understand you wanting me to work on my hand-to-hand, did you also forbid quirk usage because you didn't want me to copy yours? Looks like Momo caught on to your hidden motive. Yep. My quirk comes with a lot of drawbacks, and I didn't want you to risk hurting yourself trying to use it. Honestly, copying my quirk really just isn't worth all the trouble. The copycat just stares. So, it's just because you wanted to protect me? Your brows furrow? Yeah, why else would I do that? Momo averts his gaze, muttering so quietly you almost don't hear him. Thought you might be against me stealing your quirk. Sharing a confused look with Ajiro, you raise an eyebrow at the other blonde. But your quirk involves copying others' quirks, not stealing them, right? Physical contact allows you to use the person's quirk for 5 minutes. You'd just be copying me, so it's not like I wouldn't be able to still use mine. For some reason, he appears surprised by your words. You know that much about my quirk? You nod. After the sports festival, I decided I should learn more about Class 1B since there was a chance I'd be working with you all, so I looked through your files to learn more about your class. That's when you realize what has him so surprised. You promptly roll your eyes. Just because I'm the top for Class 1 it doesn't mean I don't care about your class, Momo. If there's something I can do for you guys as well, I want to help in any way I can. With a strong jab to his CHC, you add, that's why we're doing this in the first place. I didn't have to do anything, but I wanted to work with you. I wanted to see if I could find out what brought you here to Yua. Momo gives you a confused look as he parrots. What brought me here? Nodding. You cross your arms. All I've heard about you since coming to this school is your rivalry with Class 1A. I know you're not the only one who's competitive with them, but you're definitely the most eager one. That's literally all I really know about you besides your quirk. He flushes when you lean your face closer to his. What I'm interested in knowing is why you're here. You want to be a hero, right? Is it really okay for you to be so focused on Class 1A? Does it really matter what they're doing? It doesn't affect your goal to become a hero, right? Eyes wide, Monoma quietly answers, no, it doesn't. The copycat cuts himself off before averting his gaze. When he doesn't pick up where he left off, you reach over to ruffle his hair. Nothing's wrong with being competitive. I just think you take it a little too far. Rather than worrying about what Class 1A is doing, how about you focus on what kind of hero you want to become, alright? For several seconds, he remains silent, but then, Monoma aims a small grin your way. Fine. I was tired of dealing with those fools anyway. All their crazy antics are a distraction. I can't let them get in my way of becoming an amazing hero, so I'll pay them no mind from now on. Ajiro sighs. Somehow, I get the feeling things won't change much with him. Before you can respond, a vision hits you. It's very brief, but it's still very worrying. Apparently, a glacier will be flying towards your group very soon. When the vision ends, both blondes are watching you with intrigued expressions. Without hesitation, you grab their hands and start pulling them along. No time to explain, just run. Despite their obvious confusion, the two students obey, running after you without trying to pull out of your grasp. The shouts of several people from the distance are the only warning you get before the flying glacier hits the ground where you three were previously standing. Monoma's jaw drops. What the hell? That could have crushed us. Ajiro rubs the back of his neck nervously. Looks like Todoroki's attack went a little off course. You huff in exasperation. No kidding. When your group meets up with the others, Aizawa and Vlad King make sure none of you are injured, even though they obviously saw that you all moved before the glacier landed. While they're examining Monoma and Ajiro, you look toward Todoroki. Rather than immediately blame him, you ask, okay, so who's the one to blame for the glacier nearly crushing us? Without hesitation, the ice user points at Tetsutetsu without saying a word. The 1B student balks before quickly pointing at Todoroki. What? It's your ice, don't go blaming me for blocking it. In a blink, you have your water gun out and promptly shoot them both in the face. Unlike last time, it's on a softer setting, so it's nothing like what happened with mine the first time. Tetsutetsu sputters while Todoroki just blinks, obviously not expecting you to SQR him. You wave the gun at them. I'll hold you both responsible for not paying better attention to your surroundings. I have no idea what the hell you two were doing that led to such an outcome, but don't let it happen again. They immediately nod their heads, with Tetsutetsu appearing chastised. While his face is as blank as ever, there is a small frown on Todoroki's face, so you're sure he'll take your advice seriously. Meanwhile, all the other students are quietly laughing at the two USQR in the face. Yaoyorozu, being the saint that she is, makes 2 towels for both boys, so they can dry off. Noticing how strong Kaminari is laughing, you decide to have a little fun and SQR him in the face too. Sputtering, he gives you a betrayed look. Sensei. I wasn't even doing anything wrong. Jiru snickers at his reaction while you grin at him. You should always be aware of your surroundings, Kaminari. Just think of this as training to help you with that. While Ashido and Siro are laughing at their friend's expense, Kirishima gives you an eager look as he grins broadly. Shoot me next. Sensei, you tilt your head. Kirishima, you've never done anything wrong in your entire life. Siro grins broadly. We know this, and we love him. Appreciating the great follow-up, you hold out a hand toward the dark-haired boy, so he can give you a high five. Several of the students start snickering, even Kaminari, who now has a towel thanks to Yaoyorozu. And now, Kirishima has an adorable blush coloring his cheeks. I was hoping you could use the setting like you did with Minta. It seemed like it would be good training for me to practice holding my stance after activating my quirk. Minta stares at him with horror. You're insane, the water pressure of that gun is crazy, don't volunteer to get hit with it. While Class 1B stares at you now with a mixture of intrigue and disbelief, you huff in amusement in response to Kirishima's offer. Figuring it wouldn't hurt to go along with it, you motion for him to step away from everyone else. Since Aizawa isn't trying to intervene, you assume he's alright with this. Alright, let's give it a try. There's actually a setting higher than what I used on Minta. Wanna try it? The redhead bashes his fist together as he activates his quirk. Please, give me everything you got, Sensei. Everyone wisely keeps their distance as you aim the gun at him. After adjusting the dials, you pull the trigger. An even larger torrent of water shoots out to hit Kirishima head-on. It's so powerful you even feel a kickback. Thankfully, Shoji, who's standing nearby, braces you with his arms so you don't fall backwards. When the water runs out, you're very impressed by the sight of Kirishima's unchanged form. Despite the intense water pressure, he doesn't look any different than earlier besides, of course, being soaking wet now. Towel in hand, Yaoyorozu approaches her classmate while carefully examining the ground. While it's strong to say since we didn't mark your earlier position, I do think you moved back a few centimeters, Kirishima-san. A pout forms on his lips as he accepts the towel. Ah, man, really? I guess I need to work more on my footwork. Tetsu laughs as he pats the redhead on the back. Not bad, Kirishima, you were looking really manly there. That's the way to take a hit, you blink. Huh, guess there are 1A and 1B students that get along well with each other. Since that last shot used up the rest of your water, you stash the water gun in your backpack, making a mental note to refill it later. That's when the homeroom teachers call an end for the PRD and tell everyone to head back inside. With that, the students all head back to the main building with Vlad King taking the lead while you and Aizawa take the rear. As you're walking beside the older man, he comments, "Wasn't expecting you to pick Ojiro." You tilt your head curiously. "Were you hoping I'd go a different route instead?" He scratches his chin. "Not really. Once I realized what you were trying to do, it made sense. Didn't think you'd actually use your quirk, though." You rub the back of your head nervously. "Are you mad? I know you said you prefer to keep an eye on me when I use it, but I wanted to do something for Ojiro. Fighting me and Monoma, who are inexperienced, really isn't much of a challenge for him. I wanted him to be able to get something out of it too." Aizawa side-eyes you before stuffing his hands in his pockets. "You didn't overdo it, so it's fine. Just be sure to take something for your headache. Don't just wait for it to go away on its own." When you nod, the underground hero drawls, "You know, the kids will be expecting you to do that again if we end up having another training session with both classes." You stare at him incredulously. "Seriously? It's not like what I did was any different from what you and Vladson were doing with the other kids. You're also able to give much more useful advice." He shrugs. Ojiro and Monoma both looked like they got a lot out of it, and it's easy to see they enjoyed it. It won't take long for the other kids to notice that, and they'll get interested. A lot of the 1A kids looked disappointed when you didn't pick them. "Aw, man, you hang your head? Now, you're making me feel guilty. I just picked Ojiro since I thought he'd be a perfect match for Monoma." Aizawa snorts, "Just be ready for kids asking you to pick them next. Since you were able to offer helpful advice to Ojiro and Monoma, the others will be expecting you to do the same for them." All you can do is sigh. "Oh boy, what have I gotten myself into this time?" Since meeting her, you have learned that Hatsume can be very dangerous to your health if you're not careful. Ever since you offered to come by to see any new invention she creates, she's been calling you over to the support studio whenever you have free time during the day. Unfortunately for you, you didn't realize until it was already too late that your words could be misconstrued. While you just wanted to offer to be a listening ear, she thought you were offering to be a test subject. Even though you always have the option to refuse, you never can bring yourself to do so since you don't want to hurt her feelings. She always looks so excited, so you don't have the heart to turn her down. Thankfully, she does take your worries into consideration, and always does several safety checks before performing any new tests. So, nothing super serious ever happens like explosions while using one of her new inventions. There is a good side to this budding relationship the two of you now share. It means if you have ideas for a new invention, there's a strong chance she'll make it. For example, after your encounter with Stain, you decided you should be better equipped for dangerous encounters. After getting Aizawa's approval, you asked Hatsume to make you some smoke bombs to help you escape from possible attackers. You also thought it would be a good idea to have something to throw at their faces to temporarily blind them. You got the idea of using a glitter bomb after observing Aoyama. Considering how much he loves to sparkle, you began to wonder why he didn't have a tool like that. While these ideas are far from being the most imaginative, Hatsume didn't dismiss your requests and actually looked eager to make them for you. While on the surface it may seem like all she cares about are her inventions and promoting them, you know deep down she's a good kid who wants to help people with her creations. When you walk into the support studio today, it's because Hatsume has a new baby she's hoping you'll use for classroom management. For some reason, rather than tools for office work, she keeps making you inventions for that particular purpose. The pink-haired girl grins broadly as she hands you a set of black gloves that have thick metal plating on the knuckles. "Say hello to my newest babies. For someone like you whose quirk doesn't have an intimidation factor, I thought this would be the perfect way to get everyone's attention." Shaking your head, you give her an amused look as you put on the gloves. "Hatsume, intimidation is really more Eraserhead's thing. I don't know why you're under the impression that I need to scare my students, and I'm a little worried by how many inventions you're making for that specific purpose." Her grin never falters. "Trust me, you'll love this. Go over to that practice dummy and punch it as strong as you can." With a huff, you do as she asks and walk over to the practice dummy she uses to test out her babies. Well, the one for this week anyway, since they typically don't last more than a week. Moving into a fighting stance, you pull back your fist and slam it into the dummy as strong as you can. Somehow, your punch has more power behind it than usual, resulting in the dummy's head flying off after you make contact with it. Your jaw drops as you take in the sight of the now headless dummy. What the hell just happened? Hatsune laughs gleefully. That was thanks to my babies. The gloves are made to absorb the impact and force of your attacks and redistribute that kinetic energy to add more power to your punches. All you can do is stare. And you made this for the purpose of classroom management? She shrugs, waving her hand in a so-so motion. I mainly just want people to see you using them and draw them in. Handling your students is just a cool bonus. You snored at her completely shameless reasoning. You should have known that's what her real goal was. Still, you can't bring yourself to be upset with her since she's offering this awesome invention to you for free use. Grinning, the pink-haired inventor gives you a thumbs up. It'd be even better if you used my babies to stop the next villain that tries to kidnap you. Can't get better publicity than that. Rolling your eyes, you reach over to pat her head. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you, Hatsune. Your babies really are amazing. When she beams in response, you can't help but return her grin. Despite her eccentricities, Hatsune really is a great ally to have. While you hope you won't ever have to deal with something like the stain incident again, you're glad you have a trump card like this. You're very lucky that the support corps student took such an interest in you that she'd willingly provide such amazing inventions for you to freely use. Just as you think that, one of her other inventions suddenly catches on fire, and you have to pull Hatsune away from it since she seems more interested in discovering what caused the fire than stopping it. The next several minutes are spent with the two of you working to put out the fire. Maybe lucky wasn't the best word choice. For the rest of that morning, you find yourself repeatedly thinking about Hatsune's words. It'd be even better if you used my babies to stop the next villain that tries to kidnap you. While you know it was intended to be a joke, you can't deny the possibility of there being a next time. Just because Stain failed to kill you doesn't mean the League of Villains no longer wants you dead. Furthermore, the League has that barrier Quirk user working for them. He's connected to your mysterious past somehow. From the looks of it, he knows more about you than you do, which is very disconcerting. He was even able to find out that it was you who warned Ingenium and connected the dots to figure out why, leading to Stain taking an interest in you. What's worse, considering Aizawa and the other pro-heroes have yet to come up with another reasonable explanation, it's very likely the villains sent spies to the sports festival in order to find out about your drawback that forces you to take the pain of injuries you prevent. That means the League of Villains has infiltrated US campus multiple times now. While you would like to say you're safe at UA thanks to all the strong and reliable pro-heroes here, you know it would be naive of you to believe that nothing could ever happen to you, considering the League of Villains' track record. Of course, you trust the staff here implicitly. If they say they'll protect you, you believe them. But that doesn't change the fact that the students will always be their number one priority, and rightfully so. You'd never forgive yourself if you were protected at the expense of a student. It's true that the students are heroes in training, and you're technically just a civilian. Even so, you still believe that they should be prioritized above you. Naturally, you realize that your students wouldn't agree. You know your students would do their best to protect you if you were put in danger, even if it meant endangering themselves. The hero killer incident was proof of that. While you greatly appreciate that they go so far for your sake, you really want to avoid that. That's why you're training to get stronger, so you can protect yourself. So, your students won't have to worry about you and can focus on worrying about taking care of themselves instead. Still, no matter how much training you go through, that doesn't change the fact that the villains have Kurogiri who can easily kidnap you at a moment's notice. You don't think your reflexes could ever be so good that you could dodge one of his portals in time. So, that begs the question. In the case of a possible future kidnapping, what could you do to prepare yourself aside from what you've already been doing? You scratch your head. Well, I don't think there's anything I can do to actually prevent me from being warped by the portals, so I guess the next best thing would be to find a way to lead the heroes to me. As much as I hate being a burden, in the end, calling for help is all I really can do in such a situation. Obviously, you can't literally call for help. No doubt they'd confiscate or even destroy your cell phone once you're captured. That is, if they don't just go ahead and kill me once I'm captured. After all, Stain said they wanted me dead. Why would they bother keeping me around if that's really the case? You quickly shake your head to dismiss those morbid thoughts. Rather than worry about what they could do, you should focus on covering all your bases. If, for whatever reason, the League does keep you alive for a little while, how could you lead the pro-heroes to you? Maybe a tracking device. I don't know if the League has any kind of equipment that counteracts that kind of technology, but it's probably my best bet. You muse. If I started wearing a tracking device, like under my clothes, I'd never have to worry about the heroes having trouble finding me. While most people would be uncomfortable with being constantly monitored, it honestly doesn't really bother you that much. Considering your situation, it would actually be a comfort to know that you could always be found, no matter where you get taken. I guess I could ask Hatsune to make me one. I'm sure she could and would probably love the chance to create something that could lead to saving me. You think to yourself, that would definitely be good publicity for her despite the fact that my identity is currently on the down low due to my strange situation. During lunch, you decide to go back to the support studio to see if the pink-haired girl would be up for it. On the way there, you cross paths with a strangely pensive Yaoyorozu. Come to think of it, ever since the sports festival, the dark-haired girl has been somewhat off. It's not like she's changed to the extent of Todoroki, who's actually slowly becoming more sociable. Rather, it seems the change is more of the opposite. She's not secluding herself, of course, but she does seem more unsure of herself. Her confidence in regards to her studies hasn't changed, but when it comes to her physical lessons, she's always more tense. From what you can recall of the joint training with 1B, Yaoyorozu didn't win her match and was pretty down about it. Of course, that didn't stop her from offering towels to the students you squirted with your water gun. A frown forms on your lips. I remember her reaction to losing to Aoyama at the sports festival. It was obvious that she was disappointed in herself. Her confidence took a huge hit from that loss. As you're wondering what you could do for her, an idea comes to mind that makes you grin. Quickly, you move to saddle up beside the dark-haired girl. Hey, Yaoyorozu, are you busy at the moment? I was hoping I could ask you for a favor. Your words successfully draw Yaoyorozu out of her reverie. She blinks in surprise before donning a kind smile. Of course, Unsensei, I would be happy to. Motioning for her to follow you, you lead her toward the nearest exit, so the two of you can find a private spot outside. Awesome! You're a huge help. As payment, I'll give you the extra bento I made. Can't have you skipping lunch on my account after all. She gives you a surprised look. It is quite fortunate that you have an extra one on hand. Is that normal? You chuckle. Yep. Somehow or another, I always find myself in a situation where someone needs it, so I like to make an extra, just in case. After stopping at a nearby vending machine to get some drinks, the two of you take a seat underneath the first tree you see. There's no one else around, so you'll have plenty of privacy. Once the food has been set out, you tell the girl your idea. So, you know how I was kidnapped during the incident with the hero killer? When you see her nod, you continue. Well, apparently, the League of Villains has it out for me since they know I interfered with the Usti attack. Yaoyorozu gasps, bringing a hand to cover her mouth. So, you mean to say you have become their target? Grimacing, you nod. I won't say I'm the only one or even the most important one. Obviously, All Might holds that position. But it's obvious they hate how my quirk can interfere with their plans. There's a brief pause before she hesitantly asks, May I ask how they found out about you? Since you were not present at the Usti attack, I had hoped that meant the villains would not discover your involvement. All you can do is shrug. I can't say for sure, but it seems like they got someone working for them who somehow knows about me. I've had a vision about the guy, but I have no idea who he is or how he knows about me. Even though you've already been at UA for 2 months, you still haven't told any of the students your full situation aside from Shinsu. After talking with him, you're not so worried about them finding out, but at the same time, you wonder if it's a good idea for them to know. You don't want to give them another reason to worry about you after all. A thoughtful frown appears on your student's face. I see. So, if I'm assuming correctly, you're taking preventive measures in case another attack is made against you, and you hope my quirk can be of use in your endeavor. As expected, the bright girl catches on very fast. Yep, I know you can make anything as long as you know what the object consists of, so I was wondering if you could make a tracking device for me. Her eyes widen in surprise before gaining a calculative look. She holds her chin for a few seconds before finally replying, Yes, I can do that. While I hate to imagine you having to go through that again, it makes sense to have something ready in case you are kidnapped. Setting aside her bento, Yaoyorozu runs a hand across her arm before presenting to you what appears to be a small button. By wearing this, you can be tracked, no matter where you're taken. I can also make the device that can track you. Would you like that as well? Shaking your head, you reach for the tracking device. I don't think we need to worry about going that far just yet. I think just having this will be enough for now. Thank you, Yaoyorozu. You and your quirk really are amazing. Your praise make her flush a light pink. She shyly averts her gaze as she reaches for her bento. Thank you. I'm happy that I was able to be of assistance. However, I truly hope there won't be a time when that tracking device will be needed. After you carefully place the device in your pocket, you return to your food. Same here. I know I'm safe here at UA, but I figured it would be best to be prepared, just in case. Several minutes pass in silence as the two of you eat your meals. While your student's mood seems to have improved after helping you, you still think you should do more for her. Wanting to boost her confidence more, you say the first thing that comes to mind. You really are amazing, Yaoyorozu. Not only are you the top of the class academically, you're also incredibly skilled with your quirk. It's amazing what all you can create and how you use your sharp mind to bring out your quirk's full potential. You're going to become an awesome hero for sure. When you turn your eyes toward her, you see Yaoyorozu staring at you with wide eyes. Soon after, a dark blush covers her cheeks. You're too kind, sensei. However, I think there's much I need to improve on. I'm afraid I still have a long way to go. You frown at the way her expression tightens as she looks away. Of course, you do. Everyone's like that, Yaoyorozu. This is just your first year. You've only been in school for a few months. No one expects you to be perfect right away. You're here at UA to learn, so you can become a great hero in the future. She jolts when you reach over to gently pat her head. When she turns to look at you in surprise, your expression softens. I know you're still beating yourself up over what happened at the sports festival. I think it's good to learn from your mistakes, but I think you're also focusing too much on what happened. Losing that one match doesn't make you any less of a hero compared to how you were before. You're still incredibly skilled. You just need to have more faith in yourself, Yaoyorozu. Her eyes grow larger. Faith in myself, but you cut her off by gently poking her forehead. Having such a big brain can be just as much a weakness as it can be a strength. You're thinking too much, Yaoyorozu. You keep second-guessing yourself, wondering about the what-ifs. A warm smile forms on your lips. Remember, you're Yaoyorozu Momo, one of the few students who got in through recommendations. You came in first during Aizawa-san's quirk apprehension test, and you're at the top of your class. You have more reason than anyone here to be holding your head high. You have every right to be proud. Yaoyorozu raises a hand to cover her mouth as her eyes grow misty. Unsensei. Giving her a chance to compose herself. You remove your hand and patiently wait for her to get her thoughts together. She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. A few seconds later, Yaoyorozu opens her eyes and gives you a determined look. You are absolutely right, sensei. I will only hinder myself if I continue to second-guess myself like this. Rather than worry about my faults, I must work to improve them, so I can be ready for the practical part of the final exam. The corners of your lips tug upwards. That's right. The final exam is the perfect opportunity to show everyone what you're really capable of. Show everyone the full potential of Yaoyorozu Momo. Let them see you're a real force to be reckoned with. She beams at you as she holds up her clenched fists. Yes, your smile grows. Mission accomplished. Later that day, while in the teacher's lounge, Aizawa surprises you by asking if you want to get involved with a physical lesson he has planned for his class later this week. Apparently, he wants to work on their stamina, so he's going to make them run the whole PRD to see how long they can last. You raise an eyebrow at him. You already make me run after school. You want me to do it during school as well? Present Mike snorts from his spot at his desk. Shouta, USLV driver. Give the poor girl a break. The underground hero rolls his eyes. The principal recommended me asking her about getting involved. Apparently, he found what she did with Monoma and Ojiro to be interesting. Of course, Nedzu is involved with this. You partly wonder if he watches you from the surveillance cameras whenever he's bored. Propping your elbow on the table, you rest your chin in your hand. So, then it's not about me running but getting involved with the lesson somehow. Aizawa scratches his chin. Pretty much. But don't feel forced to do anything. I only brought it up because I didn't want the principal getting on my case about it. The vocal hero tilts his head curiously. If all they're doing is running, how exactly could she get involved besides running with them? Attack them with her water gun, so they have to dodge as well as run. You snicker at the mental image that idea paints. While that would be amusing, considering how it's getting hotter outside, they'd probably welcome getting shot with water while they run. Drumming your fingers across the table, you ponder your options. While you could do something along the lines of what Present Mike suggested, maybe you should go another route instead. What if you do something to challenge them academically? Aizawa has the physical part covered with the running, but what if you made them have to think while they ran? At that moment, you get an idea that makes you grin. You immediately rise to your feet and head for the door. I need to go by the support studio. I'll be back in a little bit. Aizawa just sighs, already knowing exactly who you're looking for. Present Mike, on the other hand, gives you a grin and a thumbs up. Good luck. Thankfully, you are able to find Hatsune without much difficulty. When you tell her about your idea, the pink-haired girl grins. I have exactly what you need. I can have it ready in time for the lesson. I can also make something to hold everything you'll want to bring along. A matching grin forms on your lips. You are the best, Hatsune. Looks like your students are in for a very interesting lesson. The looks on your students' faces when you arrive on the souped-up Segway provided by Hatsune are priceless. Aizawa, who you told about your plan ahead of time, just rolls his eyes as you make your big entrance. When you went to see Hatsum the other day, it was to see if she could provide a means of transportation, so you could keep up with the students while they ran. After all, you wouldn't be much use to them if you were just as worn out from running as they were. Somehow, the pink-haired girl got a hold of an old Segway and modified it, so that it can fit 2 people. It even has a cruise control feature. Attached to the front of the Segway is a cooler which you asked for so you could hold everything you needed for the lesson. Both Ashido and Hagakure are bouncing excitedly as they check out your new ride. Meanwhile, Asui tilts her head curiously. Unsensei, will that be a part of the lesson? Ribbit. You nod as you lean against the handlebars. Yep. This way I can keep up with you all while you're running together. I thought it'd be better if I wasn't out of breath while giving my part of the lesson. Before anyone can probe further, Aizawa says, all right, this is a test of stamina, not speed. Rather than aiming for a specific number of laps, I want to see how long you can run. In will be following alongside you, so any questions or complaints you may have should go to her. His remark makes you roll your eyes. Of course, he'd say something like that. You wouldn't be surprised if he went to sleep on the grass once everyone started running, since this really is the perfect opportunity for a nap. Since it's not a race, the class remains pretty clustered together as they run in order to conserve their strength. Of course, that doesn't stop students like Bakugo, Todoroki, Midoriya, and Ada from being at the front of the pack. While you follow them on the Segway, you decide to wait before putting your part of the lesson into action. Several of the students are city-eyeing you, wondering what you're planning, but no one has worked up the nerve to actually ask. It's after they've completed their first few laps that you make your move. Hey, Hagakure, can you tell me the Pythagorean theorem? If you give me the correct answer, I'll give you some water. Everyone looks at you with surprise when you pull out a water bottle from the cooler attached to the Segway and lightly shake it for emphasis. Rather than surprised, Kaminari appears horrified. We have to do math for water. A large grin forms on your lips. Maybe. I'll be asking everyone different questions. After all, everyone here is different. Not everyone will be challenged by a math question. Turning to the invisible girl, you ask, so, how about it, Hagakure? Ooh. She hesitates, clearly having a strong time coming up with an answer while running. After a few seconds, the sleeves of her shirt jerk upwards. Oh, I remember, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? You nod in approval. That's right. Hagakure cheers as you hand her the water bottle. It's rather fascinating watching her drink, since it looks like the water is just disappearing into thin air. Looking for your next target, your eyes fall on Yaoyorozu, who gulps. Yaoyorozu, the last sentence I say will be completely in English. I want you to tell me what I say. The weather sure is nice today. There's a long pause as the brunette tries to mentally translate your words. It's obvious students like Yaoyorozu and Ida know, but they are refraining from saying anything, knowing it's not a question for them to answer. After a few minutes, Yaoyorozu smiles. The weather sure is nice today, right? Nodding, you return her smile as you hand her a water bottle, which she happily accepts. Kaminari immediately stiffens when you look at him. Oh no. Please no. I'm not ready. Rolling your eyes, you huff in amusement. Come on, Kaminari. You act like I'm about to send you to war. Just tell me the formula for finding the area of a triangle. Jiru snickers when the blonde just gives you a blank look. Oh boy, looks like he'll be tougher than you thought. Ashido surprises you when she starts waving her hand energetically. Oh, pick me for that, sensei. I remember you teaching me that formula. Impressed that the pink-haired girl is actually volunteering, you decide to hand the question over this time. All right, Ashido, lay it on me. She grins triumphantly. It's 1/2 times the base and height of the triangle. A lot of her classmates are looking at her in surprise while Kaminari just hangs his head. Usually, the two of them are the worst off, but it looks like he's on his own this time. You pull out another water bottle. That's correct. Nicely done, Ashido. I'm happy you remembered what I taught you. Ashido gives you a peace sign before enjoying her prize. After her, you start asking the other students questions to which they all answer correctly. When Midoriya's turn comes up, you decide to have some fun. Okay, Midoriya, you'll have a different challenge since academics aren't really something you struggle with. At his nervous look, you grin. I want you to accept a compliment and only say thank you in response. You're not allowed to deny what is said about you. You have to accept it. His eyes grow large as he flushes. Eh? Why? When other students ask the same question, you reply, pro heroes should be used to being complimented by their fans. Being humble is good and all, but Midoriya is a little too over the top. He needs to learn how to take a compliment. Several students, Yaoyorozu and Ida included, nod their heads while Midoriya hangs his. You tap your chin thoughtfully. So, does anyone want to do the honors? Or should I? Midoriya squeaks in embarrassment when he sees some of his classmates eagerly raise their hands. WI. Bakugo rolls his eyes as he scoffs, but doesn't actually say anything, much to your surprise. It's probably because you're there since he knows how you feel about insults toward the green-haired boy. You point at Yaoyorozu. Alright, Yaoyorozu, lead us off. Let's see how many compliments Midoriya can take. A few students snicker when Midoriya makes a strangled sound. He hasn't even been complimented yet, and he's already getting worked up. Yaoyorozu beams at her friend. I think you're really amazing, Deku-kun. The way you always work so strong makes me really want to give my all to everything I do, like what you always do. The green-haired boy stammers terribly before quietly saying, Thank you, Yaoyorozu-san. When you wink at Kirishima, the redhead chimes in. I really admire your manly spirit, Midoriya. Seeing you fight always gets me fired up. Midoriya shyly ducks his head. Thank you, Kirishima-kun. You decide to leave the boy alone a few compliments later when he ends up hiding his flustered face behind his hands. All in all, you think he did rather well, so you hand him the water bottle which he meekly accepts. Ida and Yaoyorozu are stronger to deal with since they both excel at academics and are overall pretty well-rounded. So, you settle for asking them about possible situations that could occur on the field and how they'd react to solve the problem. For Todoroki, you go another route. Alright, Todoroki. Let's do something outside of your wheelhouse. Tell me, what's the best joke you know? Without hesitation, he replies, my father. There's a long pause as everyone just stares at the stoic boy. His expression remains blank, so no one is able to get a good read on him. Nearly everyone jumps in surprise when you start cackling. You're practically wheezing, you're laughing so strong. Because of this, you almost wreck the Segway, but Xiaoji uses his arms to keep the vehicle upright. You make sure to thank him in between giggles, and you don't miss how he chuckles at your reaction. Several students are staring at you in amusement, while others are surprised that Todoroki's joke got such a reaction from you. Ida deeply frowns. You must be more careful, Unsensei. No matter how amused you are, it is not worth risking injury. After taking several deep breaths, you apologize to the bespectacled boy and promise to be more careful from now on. When you turn to look at Todoroki, you catch the faint glint of amusement in his eyes. No doubt he liked your reaction to his joke. You motion for him to move closer to you. Alright, Todoroki. You deserve a prize for that one. That was good. It's obvious that the majority of the class is confused by the joke, but thankfully, no one tries to probe further, most likely because you don't give them the chance to. Offering a hand to Todoroki, he tilts his head in confusion, but eventually, he reaches out to grab it. Everyone watches in surprise when you pull him onto the Segway with you. Rather than question you, the ice user latches onto the back of your shirt, so he can have a steady grip. Meanwhile, Minta is gaping at the sight. No fair, why does he get a ride? Kaminari and Zero say much the same. While others are probably thinking it, no one else speaks out about your actions. Before you reply, you pull out your water gun and SQR Usui after you notice how much she's sweating. She sighs in relief. Thank you, Sensei, Ribbit. After you put away the water gun, you move to dig your hand into the cooler. Todoroki gets a ride since I didn't think he could properly enjoy his prize while running. You pull out an all-might popsicle that's shaped like the hero's face and hand it to Todoroki, whose eyes widen slightly. Here you go. He does a long blink before accepting his prize. This wasn't what I was expecting. Amused, you raise an eyebrow at him. What were you expecting? Todoroki shrugs as he rips off the wrapping. Either a sticker or some candy, since that's what you've done in the past. Popsicles are new. Is that a bad thing, you ask? The ice user shakes his head before taking a bite of his popsicle. No, not at all. Thank you, Sensei. Grinning, you turn to see all the envious looks the other students are giving their classmate. You reach for another popsicle and hand it to Xiaoji, who appears surprised. That's your reward for keeping my dumb butt from crashing. That was a nice save. The six-armed student chuckles as he accepts the prize. You watch with amazement as he summons one mouth to eat the popsicle while he uses another to talk. Thank you, Sensei. I'm just glad I was able to grab on in time. That's when Dark Shadow decides to make an appearance. Can I have one, in? Takoyami rolls his eyes. You have done nothing to deserve a reward. Why would she give you one? There's a brief pause before the Quirk turns to look at you with especially bright eyes as he clasps his claws together. You look really pretty today, in. I like how you sparkle in the sunlight. Several girls, you included, coo at the shadow creature's words while his vessel makes a strangled noise. Takoyami's feathers ruffle upwards as he quickly averts his eyes to look anywhere but at you. Without hesitation, you give Dark Shadow a popsicle, who chirps excitedly. You grin as you pet the Quirk's head. Now, how can I say no when you say something like that? You're such a sweet talker, Dark Shadow. Did you learn that all by yourself, or did Takoyami teach you? Takoyami's feathers rise higher as he makes a distraught noise. Kuda gives the poor boy a sympathetic pat on the back as he runs beside him. Dark Shadow starts eating his treat. Nah, Fumikage couldn't flirt to save his life. I just learned from watching TV and Aoyama. You snort at his words while Takoyami glares heatedly at his quirk. Meanwhile, Aoyama puffs up his saint, as if proud of being a big influence on the shadow creature. I am not surprised. Considering my skills, of course you would copy moi. Hey, sensei. When you turn to look at Bakugo in surprise, he continues, You gonna call on me or what? That's right. You were planning on Bakugo going after Todoroki, but got distracted by the latter's joke. A grin forms on your lips. Sure, sorry for the wait. If you want some water, then give one of your classmates a compliment. There's a long pause before, what? Your grin grows as he stares at you in disbelief. The rest of the class is doing much the same, except for Todoroki, who's still calmly eating his popsicle. I know you're well off academically, so I figured I should go another route for you. I don't think I've ever heard you compliment someone before, so I'd like you to do that to one of your classmates. You can pick whoever you want. He glares at you as he scowls, but he doesn't blow up at you like you half expect. For several minutes, Bakugo remains quiet, making you wonder if he'll even do it. Finally, after moving to wipe away the sweat clinging to his forehead with his arm, the hothead says his next words through clenched teeth. Half and half. Your joke wasn't half bad. It was better than I expected coming from a frosty F-seeker like you. Todoroki gives his popsicle another lick. Thanks. Snickering, you give the glowering blonde a bottle of water, which he immediately starts drinking. See? That wasn't so bad. Doesn't it feel good to say something nice about your classmate? Bakugo pauses to scowl at you. No. He then returns to drinking his water. When he finishes it, the hothead throws it into the bag hanging off the Segway which you've been using to hold everyone's trash. After shaking your head at the blonde's response, you give Todoroki an amused look from over your shoulder. I can't believe you're still eating it. I figured you would have finished by now. Do you plan on hitching a ride the rest of the PRD? I don't want Aizawa-san to come after me. The ice user does a slow blink. I won't tell if you won't. While you laugh at his remark, the rest of the class scold Todoroki, with several students saying they will tell on him if he doesn't hurry up and finish off his treat. In record time, Todoroki eats the rest of his popsicle before jumping off the Segway to continue running with his class. After squirting Asui again with the water gun, you work with Kaminari until he can finally answer a question right. He cries out in relief when he gets a water bottle, and starts drinking it like he's been traveling in a desert for several days. Not long after that, Aizawa calls out to the students, announcing the end of the lesson. Pretty much everyone sighs in relief, looking the definition of exhausted. Several of them even fall out on the grass. An amused smile forms on your lips. You guys look pretty tired. I was gonna offer everyone else a popsicle, but maybe you'd rather use your time to rest. Faster than you can blink, Ishido, Kaminari, and Kirishima appear before you, hovering expectantly with their other classmates not too far behind. Laughing, you hand out a treat to everyone who wants one, i.e. everyone who hasn't already gotten one. When you see Aizawa roll his eyes, you offer him one, but he immediately refuses once he realizes who the popsicles are modeled after, much to your amusement. As you start eating one, you get an idea and head over to Todoroki. Keeping your voice low, you ask, So, how do you think Endeavor would react to seeing you eat an all-might popsicle? He ponders your question briefly before the corners of his lips tug upwards just a hair. Would you like to find out? Grinning, you have him follow you to the cooler. Hell yes, I'll take the picture. Unsurprisingly, Endeavor is not pleased when he receives a text from his son with a picture of the boy eating a popsicle made in the image of his rival, all while making direct eye contact with the camera and giving it a peace sign with his free hand. Of course, the number 2 hero's angry response goes completely ignored. You're too busy laughing and enjoying the way your students' eyes light up with amusement. While the boy doesn't outright laugh, the slight shaking of his shoulders and the quiet huff he releases let you know he definitely finds this situation funny. Now, you don't think you can look at an all-might popsicle without smiling. You hope Todoroki feels the same way. Considering the amused look the ice user gives you when you grab a box of those popsicles the next time you, Yoraka, and he go grocery shopping, you're pretty sure he does. All in all, the training session that Nedzu suggested you take part in turned out really well, much to the principal's delight. As a result, he hopes that you will take part in more lessons like that in the future, which you are perfectly fine with doing since you really enjoy working with the students, both in and outside of the classroom. There's nothing you love more than being able to make a positive impact on your students' lives, so if there's something you can do to help them achieve their dreams, you'll gladly do so. That's why, after things go so well with your involvement in 2 separate training sessions, you decide to be more proactive from there on and begin thinking of new ways you can help your students. This leads to you spending more time studying them and their quirks in hopes that you can make observations that will help them, such as noticing key weaknesses that they should address so they won't be exploited. It's while you're having a private brainstorming session on the subject of your students' quirks, a few days later, that a question begins plaguing your mind. Since you think it's best to get the answer you're seeking from the source, you do just that the following morning when Kuda first walks into the 1A classroom. As soon as the student you've been waiting for arrives, you quickly wave him over to your desk. Noticing his nervous expression, you gently smile. You're not in trouble. Kuda, I just wanted to ask you a quick question about your quirk. He tilts his head curiously while other students arrive and start mingling with one another. Taking that as your cue, you continue. I know you can command animals, but does it also give you the ability to talk to them? Like, if you ask them to do surveillance, can you understand if they find what they were sent to look for? The corners of your lips tug upward when Kuda gives you a thumbs up. That's so cool. I wish I had an awesome quirk like yours, Kuda. I could talk to every cat I meet. Maybe I could even have my own cat army. An amused smile appears on Kuda's face as he flushes at the praise. Meanwhile, Ojiro chuckles, gaining your attention. Why would you want a cat army, sensei? You do a slow blink. I think the better question is, why wouldn't I want a cat army? Being surrounded by cats sounds amazing. Several students snicker at your comment. As this is happening, you notice Midoriya scribbling in his hero journal, probably putting down the information you just obtained from Kuda. Turning back to Kuda, you grin. If you ever come across any cats during your commute, be sure to tell them they can always come by Heights Alliance. Food and head scratches will always be available. Yaoyorozu cheers at the prospect of animal visitors while Todoroki simply blinks. Since he doesn't try to object, you figure he's fine with it as well. Kuda shyly smiles as he gives you a nod. When he then heads to his desk, you get another fun idea and call out to him. And tell any cat you see that if they come across a purple-haired kid with dark eye bags that he'll be nice to them too. He may come across as intimidating to some people, but he's a sap when it comes to cats. After getting a thumbs up from the shy student, you see that your words have gotten both Ojiro's and Midoriya's attention. The former is wearing a small frown while the latter is watching you curiously. However, before either of them can question you, the final bell rings, and Aizawa walks into the room. As he begins to teach, you find your thoughts wandering toward Shinsu. Hopefully, Kuda will pass along your message to the cats he meets. If he does, you and Shinsu are in for a very enjoyable future. You grin to yourself. You're welcome, Shinsu. Don't say I never do anything for you. You find out later that day after school that Kuda works surprisingly fast. When you arrive back at Heights Alliance after working out with Shinsu and Aizawa, you see a smoky gray cat sitting at the door, looking as if it was waiting for you. A happy squeal escapes you as you reach down to pet the feline. Oh, Kuda is so getting a sticker for this. Man, he works fast. I wasn't sure if he'd actually do it, but looks like he did. What a good kid. Much to your and Yaoyorozu's delight, there were more furry visitors the next morning. Because the two of you along with Todoroki spent some time petting and feeding them with the cat food you kept in the dorm just in case. You all arrive at homeroom several minutes later than usual. Noticing that Kuda is already seated, you make a beeline for his desk and pull out a flower sticker and some candy for him. He blushes when you beam at him. Thank you, Kuda. You totally made my morning. You're the best. His blush darkens as he shyly ducks his head after receiving his prizes. Not wanting to overwhelm the boy, you give him a gentle pat on the shoulder before turning to head back to the front of room. Ah, sensei, surprised. You pause and turn to look at Sato, who's rubbing the back of his neck nervously. You move to approach his desk, which is right behind Kuda's. What's up, Sato? That's when you notice the small tin container on his desk. Sato sees where you're looking and moves to remove the lid. Soon after, the delightful smell of cinnamon invades your senses, and you find yourself unconsciously leaning forward to examine the cookies inside the container. Those smell amazing, Sato. Cinnamon, right? Sato nods. They're cinnamon sugar cookies. Because of my quirk, I do a lot of baking in my free time. I made these yesterday while I was baking with my mom. A sheepish grin forms on his face. I accidentally made too much, though. I wasn't really sure what to do with them. But my mom said I should give them to you as thanks for helping me with my homework the other day. Your eyes sparkle excitedly. Really? I can have them? They look really delicious. He flushes as he rubs the back of his neck. They're not much, but hopefully, you'll like them. Unable to restrain yourself, you reach for one of the cookies and take a bite. It's at that moment you realize your student is totally underselling himself. The taste is absolutely phenomenal, and the bite you took practically melts in your mouth. It has just the right mixture of flavors. Without hesitation, you WHP out a cake sticker and put it on his hand. This is one of the best cookies I've ever had. This is like professional baker level good. I want to try one. Me too. All the female students immediately join you at Sato's desk after hearing your praise for his baking, and when you nod your approval, they all reach for a cookie. Sato just sits there, appearing flustered, as all the girls make please sounds and start complimenting his cooking skills. Kaminari and Mainta are obviously jealous of the attention their male classmate is getting from all the girls. On the other hand, Kirishima and Shiro look like they're more interested in the cookies. Unfortunately, there aren't enough that all the boys can try one. When you say this, Kirishima and Shiro start sending Sato pleading looks, leading to him promising to make more for everyone to try. Apparently, Sato didn't expect his baking to be so popular, so he had never considered making something for his class. Since he agreed to bring more at a later date, that means you can keep the rest of the cookies for yourself. Quickly, you stash what's left over in your bag before the girls can grab any more. While you love your students dearly, that doesn't mean you're willing to give up all your cookies if you don't have to. Plus, Sato did bring them to school with the intention of them being a present for you, so it wouldn't be good if you only ate one of them. Once you've secured the cookies, you give Sato a smile. Thank you for the wonderful present, Sato. I love it. A bashful grin appears on his face. If you ever have any requests, just let me know. It's the least I can do for all the help you provide me here at school. Your smile grows. Thank you. I might just take you up on that kind offer. Because with baking skills like his, you'd be a fool not to. Just before lunch, you discover that you accidentally left your cell phone in the one classroom. So when the lunch bell rings, you decide to head that way to grab it, after you make sure Aizawa wakes up to eat his bento, of course. When you arrive at the classroom, you expect it to be empty, but are surprised to see Aoyama sitting alone at his desk, eating his lunch. You can't help but stare as you take in the fancy tablecloth and silverware. There's even what appears to be a wine glass, but surely, that's not actual wine inside it, right? He blinks in surprise when you walk into the room before donning his signature smile. Hello, mademoiselle. What a surprise to see you here. You grin sheepishly as you head over to the front desk to look for your cell phone. Thankfully, you're able to find it underneath some papers. I forgot my phone, so I came by to pick it up. I'm surprised to see you here, Aoyama. Do you always eat in the classroom during lunch? The blonde does a pose. Oui. The cafeteria does not suit my tastes, so I prefer to eat here instead. Your gaze roams across the empty classroom as you lean against the desk. You don't mind eating in here all by yourself. You strike me as the type of guy who likes eating with big groups. His personality is just so flamboyant. It's obvious he likes to be the center of attention, so you'd expect him to want to always be around other people, not keep to himself like this. Aoyama elegantly sips from his glass. I do like eating with others, but I do not mind eating alone either. This is not unusual for me since my shining presence can come across as intimidating to some people. So, in other words, he's used to eating alone. Does that mean it was like this for him at his other schools too? You wonder. If you remember correctly, the blonde was born in France, so he did live there for a little while before coming to Japan. Maybe he had issues adjusting to the new culture. You find yourself taking a closer look at the boy. By all appearances, Aoyama seems perfectly content sitting in an empty classroom all by himself. At that moment, you realize you've never seen the blonde really interact with any of his classmates. Sure, he's sociable, but you don't think he's actually solidified a friendship with anyone like how Midoriya has with Ida and Uraraka. You've never seen Aoyama consistently hang around a particular classmate. He just typically talks to whoever is willing to listen to him. As you make this realization, you can't help but wonder if the boy intentionally wants this, or if he's just awkward when it comes to making friends. Is this something you should interfere with, or is it better to leave it alone? You don't want to annoy your student with your meddling, but you'd like to do something if you can. That's when you get an idea. While it might be best for you to not interfere with his social life, there's nothing stopping you from eating lunch with him. A large smile forms on your lips. You wouldn't mind if I ate in here, would you, Aoyama? I always bring my bento to eat in the teacher's lounge, but I think it would be a nice change of pace to eat somewhere different today. His eyes widen in response to your request before he quickly schools his features. With a smile, Aoyama gives you a wink. Why, of course, mademoiselle. I could never turn down the company of a lovely lady like yourself. The blonde really is a charmer. Even though he already got the sticker today for being the first to compliment you, he still says something like that without hesitation. Just as you're about to comment on how smooth he is, Aoyama catches you by surprise when he pulls a tablecloth out of nowhere and drapes it across the desk beside his. While you originally intended on just sitting at the front desk, You figure Ajiro won't mind you using his desk as long as you don't make a mess, so you decide to go along with this unexpected turn of events. After you make yourself comfortable at the desk, you bring out your bento and ask Aoyama what France is like. You figure that would be a good topic to start with since he seems to really like his home country. As expected, his visage starts to sparkle even brighter than usual as he tells you about his homeland. While he starts off by talking about the fancier parts of France, Aoyama also tells you about the cottage his grandparents own, which is located far outside the city limits. According to your student, the French countryside is quite appealing. When the topic finally moves to French cuisine, Aoyama sighs wistfully. It is unfortunate that not all dishes are easily accessible outside of the country. It's also quite strong to find truly good French cuisine outside of France, unless it is homemade. So, I can only eat it when I am at home or visiting my relatives in France. While you have no idea how long it's been since he last visited France, it's obvious the blonde feels homesick. It's not serious enough to be blatantly obvious, but it's easier to notice the more you listen to him. Maybe you could do something for him. You've never tried to cook French cuisine before, but surely, it's not that difficult. You just need to find a reliable recipe. Maybe do something simple like an eclair. Those don't appear like they'd be too difficult to make. As you mentally go over ingredients that you'll need, you're drawn out of your thoughts by Aoyama's voice. Sensei, do you dislike your quirk? Surprised, you turn to see the student facing away from you, resting his chin on his interlaced fingers. It takes you a few seconds to respond since the question came out of nowhere. After taking some time to gather your thoughts, you finally reply, "For a while, I did. I hated how I couldn't control Ethao. It'd hurt me if I tried to warn someone about an important vision. It seemed so useless to me, and I hated that about it." His eyes slant in your direction as he tilts his head. "But not now," you shake your head. "No, while I admit it's still a pain in the butt, I do see how much help it can be. Ever since coming to UA, I've been able to successfully warn people and prevent them from getting hurt. I can even use my quirk to defend myself now. So, I've come to like it since coming here." There's a peculiar glint in his eyes as Aoyama smiles. "I am glad to hear that, mademoiselle. As someone who is very familiar with suffering quirk-inflicted drawbacks, I am happy that you found a reason to like your quirk. Drawbacks aside, c'est magnifique." At the mention of his own quirk, you realize that the two of you are similar in that you both have quirks that cause you pain. In his case, he gets intense stomach pain if he uses his navel laser for too long. Despite this, you can tell he is very fond of his quirk, unlike how you used to feel about yours. You smile. "You're amazing, Aoyama. Even though your quirk can cause you so much pain, you still want to become a hero and use it to help others despite all the risks. Not many people would be willing to put themselves at risk like that." For some reason, instead of accepting the compliment with a proud smile like you expect, Aoyama just stares at you with wide eyes, as if shocked that you would say such a thing. He opens and closes his mouth several times in an uncharacteristic manner before suddenly averting his gaze. Worried about his abrupt change in behavior, you open your mouth to ask if he's all right, but are cut off by his quiet response. "Is it really amazing, even when I have such poor control?" Your brows furrow in confusion. It takes you a minute to realize what he's talking about, and then, you remember the support belt he always has to wear. After seeing him get to use his belt during the sports festival, you did a little more research on him and found out that his quirk sometimes leaks out on its own accord. Apparently, it's easier on his body to use his quirk while wearing the belt, so it was allowed for the festival. While you would have never guessed considering his usual behavior, it seems Aoyama is actually pretty insecure about his quirk. Your expression softens. "Sure, it is. Despite the problems you face, you were still able to make it into Class 1A. Even though I'm sure it's been strong, you've made it this far and haven't given up. That's really impressive, Aoyama." When he turns to look at you with wide eyes, you find yourself wondering when was the last time he got genuinely complimented for his quirk. Smiling, you reach over to gently his hair. "I think you and your quirk are both amazing, Aoyama. You're so dazzling that I find it strong to look away from you. There's just something about watching you be your usual charming self that makes me happy." Your smile grows. "That's why I have no doubt that you'll be a great pro hero, since that's the kind of quality I think all pro heroes should possess." Much to your surprise, Aoyama's eyes grow misty in response to your words. "Sensei," after a long pause, he mutters, "I don't think I deserve such kind words." "Of course, you do," you softly reply. "I wouldn't have said them otherwise." Just as you feared, this poor boy truly isn't used to being complimented like this. Even worse, it's possible that he's actually used to the opposite. After all, you wouldn't be surprised if he had to deal with rough treatment from his peers because of his less than perfect quirk. That would explain why he's insecure about it. Obviously, you'll have to do something about this by making sure Aoyama gets all the compliments he deserves while at UA. You refuse to allow Aoyama to think he's anything less than amazing. Just as you think that, Aoyama silently ducks his head to hide his face. You spend the next few minutes stroking his hair in hopes of offering him comfort and refrain from speaking since it looks like he needs a moment to himself. Once Aoyama composes himself, you move to hold both of his hands with yours, catching him by surprise. When his wide eyes meet yours, you smile. Let's both work strong to MSTR our quirks, so we can help people, Aoyama. You'll become the shining hero who'll light up the hero world, while I'll do my best to do whatever I can to support you and your class. For several seconds, Aoyama just stares, and then, slowly a small smile rises to his lips as his eyes gain a glossy sheen. I would like that. Warmth envelops your CH-sin at the sight of his tender smile. It's an appealing sight to behold, especially after seeing the painful expression he was wearing earlier. Wanting to do everything you can to ensure that smile doesn't leave your student's face, you bring up a new topic that you know he'll love. Hey, Aoyama, have you ever considered adding glitter bombs to your arsenal? Surprise briefly crosses his features before his eyes regain their lost sparkle. Do tell. With a laugh, you release his hands and proceed to explain what you had planned in regards to a weapon you can use to temporarily blind your opponents, so you can escape your attackers. Aoyama obviously adores the idea, just as you expected. I'll ask Hatsum to make a batch of glitter bombs just for Aoyama since it's obvious that he would love to have some. You chuckle. I feel bad for whomever he uses them against. Hopefully, his classmates won't find out it was my idea. Even if they do, you'll gladly face the repercussions since nothing is more important to you right now than that bright smile on Aoyama's face. You'll do whatever you can to ensure it never fades away, because the world is a much better place when Aoyama's smiling. Definitely. Asui Tsuyu is a very interesting girl. Thanks to her quirk, she has frog-like qualities despite still looking completely human. While some people might find this strange, you think she's absolutely adorable. Part of the reason being that she's the second shortest student, making you about a head taller than her. For some reason, you can't help but find that super endearing. Besides being adorable, Asui has a sharp mind, proven by her high score on her midterm exam. She also has an incredible mastery of her quirk which you can't help but admire. You can only dream of someday having such control over your own quirk. The green-haired girl also tends to be pretty blunt when she speaks, but you can tell she never means any harm with her words. She just likes to say how it is, and you respect that. Sometimes the truth hurts, but that's not really her fault. One thing about Asui that amuses you is how she's the only student who welcomes being shot by your water gun. Pretty much everyone else, Minta especially, takes extra measures to avoid being squirted, but she loves it. Of course, considering the nature of her quirk, it's really not that surprising. It's gotten to the point that all she has to do is call out your name and give you a certain look, and you immediately know she wants you to SQR her. Since the weather started getting warmer, she's been coming to you more often during physical lessons to get spritzed. What's even funnier is some of her classmates have started copying her, realizing that in this kind of weather being shot by a water gun is actually the way to go. While Asui always reaches you first, Ashido, Uraraka, Kaminari, Kirishima, and Shiro are never too far behind. Because Asui is a straightforward person, you never really have a strong time understanding her, and typically don't have to worry about her surprising you unlike some of her more eccentric classmates. However, that doesn't mean she can't occasionally catch you off guard. What happens today after the last class of the day is proof of that. As you're handing out graded homework before the final bell rings, Asui motions for you to come over. Intrigued, you walk over to her desk, aware of the many eyes watching you both curiously. The green-haired girl digs through her bag and pulls something out that you can't see because her hand is closed into a fist. When she asks for your hand, you comply, looking a mixture of intrigued and confused. Your eyes grow large when she places a Hello Kitty sticker on the back of your hand. Asui smiles at your dumbfounded expression. Since you're always giving us stickers, I thought I should give you one as thanks, Ribbit. It's only fair that you get one too for your strong work, Sensei. Tearied, you quickly wrap your arms around the girl and give her a tight hug. Asui, thank you, I'll treasure it forever, she returns the embrace, completely unperturbed by the sudden hug. You're welcome. I'm glad you like it, Ribbit. Kirishima starts sniffling. Oh man, that's so sweet. Several students nod in agreement, even though you can't see them from your current position. You also miss the calculative looks that some of them are now sporting. Right as you pull away from Asui, Kaminari asks, Suu, are the hugs for anyone who gives you a sticker, Sensei? Seeing his eager face along with several other curious expressions, all you can do is laugh. After having so many fun things happen today, you find yourself looking forward to training with Shinsu even more than usual. You can't help but feel really happy after having such a nice day. Being the observant boy that he is, Shinsu questions your good mood as you're both running on the treadmill. Did something good happen? Or have you discovered that you actually really love working out until every part of your body hurts? Snorting, you give the purple-haired boy an amused look. While I do so love being beaten into the ground, the reason for my good mood is that I had a really nice day. I even got free cookies and a cute sticker from 2 of my students. There's a brief pause, and then, what kind of cookies? You grin when you see his interested expression. Cinnamon sugar cookies. You want one when we're done? Hell yeah, with a laugh, you promise to share one with him. After you do that, Shinsu asks for more details about your day, so you tell him about all the good things that happened while the 2 of you are training. It's moments like this that remind you why you don't mind the crazy training regimen Aizawa assigned you. While the hellish training is far from fun, it's not as bad as it could be because you're doing it with Shinsu rather than by yourself. You really enjoy spending time with him and are very happy about how he seems to open up to you more as time passes. That alone makes all the training worth it in your opinion. If you were to describe this relationship, you'd be tempted to say the 2 of you are a little like siblings, considering the way you both get along. Despite your position as a teacher, Shinsu always treats you rather casually, and it's obvious he's more relaxed around you as compared to Aizawa or the other teachers. Most likely, it's because of your young appearance. While you have no idea how old you actually are, you don't think you're more than 3 years older than him, so he probably feels more comfortable with you since you're closer to his age compared to the other teachers. However, Shinsu is never purposefully disrespectful toward you. How he manages to be so snarky and respectful simultaneously is a mystery to you, but you admit you like how he acts since it helps you feel more comfortable around him. Of course, it's not like you actually feel uncomfortable around the other students. You're just always worrying about being a proper adult figure to them, while also being approachable enough that they feel they can always come to you, no matter the problem. There's a fine line you have to worry about not crossing. With Shinsu, it's different because you're not actually his teacher. There are no expectations from him nor you. The 2 of you are simply training together, working to become stronger, so you can protect yourself and he can become a pro hero. After you finish telling him about your day and the 2 of you start lifting weights, you ask, "What about you, Shinsu? Anything interesting happened lately?" At school. Nah, nothing really interesting happens in the general course, but the corners of his lips curve upwards. The walk back home yesterday was definitely interesting. You tilt your head curiously. Really? What happened? His smile remains firmly in place as he brings his attention back to his weights. Met a few cats on my way home. Really friendly ones. They let me pet them and everything. A broad smile forms on your lips. Looks like Kuda fulfilled your other request too. He really is the best. You might just have to give him another sticker tomorrow. Before you can hide it, Shinsu notices your expression and gives you a suspicious look. That smile can't mean anything good. Your lips curve into a pout. What's that supposed to mean? What's wrong with me smiling? He rolls his eyes. That wasn't a normal smile. You obviously know something I don't. What did you do? With a huff, you come clean. You remember what I said about Kuda and the cats earlier when I was talking about my day? Well, I also asked him to let the cats know that you will always welcome them with open arms. There's a long pause before Shinsu finally sighs. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I am so jealous of that guy. What an amazing quirk. I could have a cat army if I had a quirk like that. You grin excitedly. I know, right, that's what I said. Then, I got asked why I'd want a cat army. The general department student raises an eyebrow. Why wouldn't you want one? Your grin grows. Right? This is why you love Shinsu. He gets it. Truly a boy after your own heart. After you both finish up your exercises for the day, you pull Shinsu along with you to Heights Alliance to see if there are any cats outside. Much to your and his delight, there are 4 lovely kitties there waiting for you. By the looks of it, Yaoyorozu and Todoroki already took care of filling up the food and water bowls for the cats. You'll have to thank them for that later. As soon as the 2 of you take a seat on the front steps, the cats move to greet you both. While you use one hand to pet the felines, you use the other to dig through your backpack and bring out the cookies Sato gave you. Once you both grab one, you close the tin, so the cats can't take any. You carefully study Shinsu's expression as he takes a bite. His eyes grow large. You're saying a student made this? Really? This tastes better than some of the cookies I've gotten from actual bakeries. Nodding, you grin at the sight of his amazed expression. Yep. Apparently, baking is a hobby of his. Awesome, right? What's even better is that he offered to make anything I request. Shinsu snorts. If you're not careful, he might realize he has the perfect ammunition to bribe you. You shrug. Fine by me. Besides, it's not like he could really get much out of me besides stickers and candy. I don't have any influence on their grades. I'm just the He the cat that climbs into his lap while stealing another cookie. When you narrow your eyes at him, the purple-haired boy just grins rather than look repentant. Guess that makes sense. I don't think anyone has the power to make Aizawa-sensei change his mind about his grades. With an amused huff, you grab another cookie. The chances of that happening are as likely as the chances of Present Mike becoming a mime. Your comment makes the GD student snicker for several minutes, and he said you couldn't be a comedian. That'll show him. Not long after that, Shinsu reluctantly gets up to leave, so he can make it home before it gets too dark. You should get moving too, since Todoroki and Uraraka are probably wondering where you are, considering it's close to dinner time now. Stashing the tin container with the cookies back in your bag, you move to stand. Before you can turn to head inside, Shinsu's hesitant voice makes you pause. Sensei, have you had any worrying visions lately? When you give him a confused look, he explains, it's not like I'm expecting something to happen, but I know you're the type to keep things to yourself in order to keep from worrying others. I wanted to make sure you haven't seen anything like you did with the Asti and Stain attacks. Your expression softens once you realize he's concerned about you. I haven't had any visions of big attacks, not since what happened with Stain. The tension in his frame eases at your words. So, nothing bad will be happening to you anytime soon? Even though you know you shouldn't, you find yourself hesitating at his question, which he immediately notices. His eyes narrow suspiciously. You're hiding something. Realizing there's no point in lying, you sigh in defeat. I really didn't receive any visions, Shinsu. However, I can't truthfully answer your question since I don't normally get visions that are just about me. Shinsu stares at you with obvious surprise. What do you mean? Are you saying you've never had a vision about something happening to just you? You shake your head. Not really. If I'm ever in a vision, I'm never the focus. Rather than get visions of my own future, I see other people's futures which I sometimes happen to be a part of. His eyes widen with realization. Is that why you never had a vision about you suffering from your drawbacks or about your kidnapping? Because you're unable to see a future directly related to you? Yeah, pretty much. You nod. I don't know if this would be considered another drawback, or if this is just a thing for people with quirks like mine. He rubs a tired hand down his face. So, you can warn others, but can never get your own warning. That really sucks. You reach out to pat his arm. Yeah, but it's alright, Shinsu. As much as you and Aizawa-san like to call me a trouble magnet, I know that my class is worse. As long as I can predict what happens to them, I'm sure I'll be able to make sure we all stay safe. Now that I know the League of Villains has a target on my back, I know not to leave campus on my own. I'll be careful from now on, I promise. When your eyes meet his, you can tell Shinsu still feels unsure about this situation. He wants to believe everything will be fine now, but after what happened at the Astian with Stain, he can't help but have some doubts. After all, there's no way to prove that you'll be completely safe whether on or off campus. The purple-haired boy sighs as he runs a hand through his hair. I guess I'm thinking too much about this. No point worrying if you haven't gotten any strange visions. Sorry for bothering you about it. A warm smile forms on your lips. You don't need to apologize, Shinsu. It actually makes me really happy that you're so worried on my behalf. I really appreciate your concern. Thank you. Shinsu averts his gaze as a light blush colors his cheeks. He abruptly turns and starts walking toward the entrance gate. See ya tomorrow, Sensei. You wave at him despite his back being toward you. Bye, Shinsu. Try not to stay up all night like you usually do, he scoffs. Tell that to my insomnia. Like I really get a say in the matter. Even after the GD student eventually disappears from view, the smile on your face remains firmly in place. You really are the luckiest teacher in the world having such wonderful students. You wouldn't trade them for anything. Because nothing else in the world could ever compare. About a week later, Aizawa has you come along with him to the school conference room for a teachers' meeting after school lets out for the day. Before you can even ask, he tells you that he has already messaged Shinsu to let him know that you're not coming to the fitness center today. Apparently, the teachers are going over the practical part of the final exam for the hero students. According to Aizawa, Nedzu wanted you to be present just in case your quirk might show you something after you find out what they have planned for the exam. When you both arrive at the conference room, you see that all the other teachers are already there aside from Vlad King, making you wonder if there will be a separate meeting just for the 1B students' exam. Seems a bit extra in your opinion, but who are you to criticize? Upon your arrival, Midnight and Present Mike quickly motion for you to sit in between them before Aizawa can direct you to sit with him. He rolls his eyes at the sight of their large grins, but doesn't bother to complain. Not long after that, the meeting begins as the teachers start discussing the exam. You decide to remain quiet since you don't think you can really contribute much to the conversation, unless you have a vision that can shed some light on what's to come in the near future. Eventually, Nezu declares that the exam should have the students fighting flesh and BLD opponents, leading to him revealing that the kids will have to fight the teachers for the practical. Your eyes grow large at the principal's words. You definitely weren't expecting that. However, he does make a good point. Considering what has happened with the villains in recent events, the students do need more real-life battle experience. Fighting robots can only help so much after all. Shortly after Nezu says this, Aizawa begins announcing the teams and their opponents, with the first team being Kaminari and Ishido, who will have to fight Nezu. Those poor kids. While you want to have faith in your students' capabilities, you have to admit that the principal is one of the last teachers you'd ever want to fight. There are just some people you know you should never mess with. You're surprised by the Yaoyorozu and Todoroki matchup that gets announced next, but you think it's a good idea to pair them against Aizawa. You think those two would be a really great team once they get into the rhythm of things. Hopefully, Yaoyorozu will have a chance to show her stuff in this exam and get that much-needed confidence boost. It's when the underground hero reveals the next student team that you freeze in shock. All you can do is stare at him with wide eyes as he says Bakugo and Midoriya will be put against All Might. What really shakes you is the fact that unlike the previous two teams, they're not put together based on their abilities or grades. He did it simply because of the fact that they don't get along. Your jaw drops. You have got to be kidding me. That's the only reason. Bakugo doesn't get along with anyone. He's just more visibly hostile toward Midoriya. How is this supposed to help prepare them for the future? Midoriya doesn't even need to work on getting along with people. This test is basically for Bakugo's sake. How is that fair to Midoriya? Before you can voice your thoughts, your quirk chooses that moment to activate, causing the scenery before your eyes to abruptly change. Instead of a conference room filled with teachers, you now see Midoriya and Bakugo standing in a deserted cityscape in their hero costumes. Horrified, you watch how Bakugo doesn't listen to any of Midoriya's suggestions and ends up punching the green-haired boy to get him to shut up. After that, your vision shows you scenes of Bakugo continuously making attempts to fight All Might despite the obvious difference in power. All the while, Midoriya futilely tries to get his classmate to work together with him. Much to your relief, Midoriya does eventually manage to convince Bakugo to work with him, but it takes a punch to the face and a lot of yelling. In the end, after several beatings from All Might, your students manage to knock him back long enough for Midoriya to carry an unconscious Bakugo through the exit gate, resulting in their win. Surprisingly enough, the vision doesn't end until after you get a peek of the aftermath of the exam. All you can do is stare in horror as Recovery Girl reveals the damage done to Midoriya. When the vision ends, you see that all eyes are on you. You must be making quite the face considering the frowns and worried looks aimed your way. Unconsciously, your gaze travels to Yagi, who stiffens upon being on the receiving end of your horrified stare. After several seconds of awkward silence, you finally speak. You almost broke Midoriya's spine. His eyes widen in shock. Before he can reply, a furious voice cuts him off. He'll do what? Everyone turns to see a red-eyed Aizawa glaring at the symbol of peace, who begins to slouch in his seat. The blonde opens and closes his mouth several times, but it appears he really doesn't know what to say in this kind of situation. While you're definitely upset with Yagi for his lack of self-control, he's not the only one you're angry with. Scowling, you point at Aizawa, gaining everyone's attention. And you, why the hell did you think this pair was a good idea? Have you not been paying attention to them at all? He narrows his eyes at you, but you don't give him the chance to respond. Within the first 5 minutes of the exam, Bakugo punches Midoriya in the face just because Midoriya was trying to come up with a plan for them. Rather than consider listening to his classmate, Bakugo punches him. How is that okay? The underground hero freezes, appearing surprised along with everyone else in the room. Even though you know you should stop talking before you say something you'll regret, more words keep pouring out. I thought this exam was supposed to help the students. How does this help Midoriya at all? You say they don't get along, but don't you realize it's completely one-sided? Midoriya has no qualms about working with Bakugo, but he knows it's a bad idea because Bakugo pretty much hates him. Realizing you need to calm down, you take a deep breath and slowly release it. You could team Bakugo up with nearly anyone else for him to get the lesson of learning how to work well with others, yet you pick this team just because the animosity between them is the most obvious. Don't you realize by doing this you're essentially punishing Midoriya? Why would you put him through this for a DMN grade? Your eyes meet Aizawa's again. You think this is just a stupid grudge built on hurt pride, but you're wrong, dead wrong. They've been like that for over 10 years. One little exam won't fix things like you're expecting it to. A heavy silence envelops the room after you finish speaking. Teachers are either looking at you or Aizawa, who's wearing a contemplative expression. Even though you didn't go into details about the boys' relationship, You think he's starting to read in between the lines to get a clearer picture of what's really going on with his students. What would you suggest we do for the two then, Unsen? Surprised, you turn to see Nedzu smiling at you with his paws clasped together. Noticing your confusion, he elaborates. Rather than pair those boys together, who would you pair them with, so they can both learn from this exam? Chancing a glance at Aizawa, you see him studying you as well, but he doesn't appear angry thankfully. Rather, it almost seems like he's interested in your answer as well. As you consider the question, you think over your students' abilities and personalities. You have no idea what the other pairings are aside from the two that were mentioned before, Bakugo and Midoriya. A part of you is worried about throwing things off by suggesting one of the students not yet mentioned, since you think the rest of the pairings are probably pretty solid. That's why you'll need to give this answer a lot of careful thought and have a good reason for pairing those students with Midoriya and Bakugo if you do go that route. One thing for sure you think should happen is Bakugo having All Might as the teacher he faces. That boy needs to face someone strong enough that he can't overpower them on his own. Midoriya, however, doesn't really need to work on teamwork. After all, he's always quick to collaborate with his allies. That's one of his main strengths. Another would be his tactical thinking skills, so putting him in a situation where he has to use those more than his quirk would be a nice change of pace for him. Plus, he can learn to think more quickly and not get lost in all the possibilities he thinks about. He's a lot like Yaoyorozu. Both are incredibly talented strategists, but also tend to overthink things at times. You think to yourself before suddenly pausing. Seconds later, your eyes widen. Wait a minute. That's it. A large grin forms on your face, immediately gaining everyone's attention. If you swap Todoroki and Midoriya, it would work perfectly. Midoriya and Yaoyorozu are both strategists. Pairing them together would allow them the opportunity to improve on their tactical skills and help them stop overthinking things. Bakugo and Todoroki are both used to winning through sheer power on their own. If you pit them against All Might, they'll have to realize that the only way they can win is through teamwork. The principal's smile grows. That sounds like an excellent idea. What do you think, Aizawa-kun? In the end, it's your decision since it's your class. Aizawa remains silent for several seconds as he stares at you, wearing an expression you can't read. After a while, he closes his eyes with a sigh. We'll swap Midoriya and Todoroki. If Bakugo is going to be that hostile during the exam, I can't knowingly put Midoriya on the same team as him. Your shoulders slump with relief. Thank goodness. You don't know what you would have done if he had still allowed Midoriya and Bakugo to be paired together. Even if they would end up winning, that doesn't mean the pairing is a good idea. It's not Midoriya's job to fix Bakugo's attitude. It's the teachers who should be doing that, and that includes me. Your hands clench into fists. Why haven't I done more about this? Once the matter of the Midoriya-Bakugo team has been settled, Aizawa goes through the rest of the student pairs. When several names are said without any reaction from your quirk, you assume that you won't be having any more visions about the practical exam. Of course, that's when your quirk decides to prove you wrong. Right after you hear that Jiro and Kuda will be up against Present Mike, you see a vision of the two students taking cover in a forest area while dealing with the vocal hero's attacks. As you wonder how they're supposed to fight back without going deaf, Jiro comes up with the idea of Kuda using insects to stop the teacher. Even though he's obviously terrified of bugs, Kuda does eventually push past his fears to ask them for help. The vision ends with Present Mike screaming in terror after being swarmed by insects bursting out of the ground. When your sight returns to normal, you see everyone watching you warily or, in Nedzu's case, with intrigue. It's probably because of your expression. You can't decide if you should be horrified or amused by what you just saw. Ah, come on, no way could I do as badly as All Might. I don't break bones, just eardrums. Aizawa snorts while Yagi gives the other blonde an offended look. Still, it doesn't look like he can really come up with anything to defend himself, since it's true that the chances of anyone causing more damage than him are slim to none. You immediately decide that you can't say what happened, since that will put Jiro and Kuda at a disadvantage. It's not fair if the teacher they'll be fighting knows what kind of strategy they'll end up using. So, instead, you simply reach over to consolingly pat Present Mike on the arm. It'll be okay. You'll recover somehow. He starts shaking your shoulders. What's with that look of pity in your eyes? If you're trying to make me feel better, you're doing the exact opposite. You can't do this to me. Unshin, what did you see? Midnight cackles at the sight of his fear, while several other teachers start chuckling. I know which test video I'm watching first after the practical is over, everyone, aside from you and Present Mike. Nods in agreement. Nedzu has a gleeful glint in his eyes while Aizawa is wearing a scary grin. The vocal hero glares at everyone. You're all horrible. You shouldn't be finding enjoyment in me being traumatized. You have to fight the urge to laugh at his reaction. It'll be okay, Mixin. You're a strong guy, so you'll survive just fine. Present Mike shakes you stronger. Stop, Unshin. You're just making me feel worse about this. Shouta, I want to fight different students. Give me another pair. Aizawa shakes his head as he continues to grin. Can't do that. You're the best suited opponent for them, so you'll just have to deal with it. Besides, you heard her. You'll survive, so what's the problem? Physically maybe so, but what about my mental health? Does that not matter to you? Present Mike asks. His friend just shrugs. Meh. Shouta! The rest of the meeting goes by smoothly once Present Mike manages to finally calm down. You truly feel bad for the poor guy. However, as much as you'd like to help him, you know you can't since it wouldn't be fair to the students. Hopefully, he won't still be anxious by the time of the exam. Otherwise, the vocal hero might get in trouble with Aizawa. Considering he is a professional, you think the blonde will be fine in the end, just extra wary of the students he's up against. After the meeting ends, everyone leaves the conference room except for Nezu, Aizawa, and Yagi. Apparently, after you gave them a more in-depth description of the fight in your first vision, the former two decided they wanted to go over what the symbol of peace is and isn't allowed to do during the exam. Hopefully, this means he won't do any serious damage to Bakugo and Todoroki. Since there's not much time left until dinner, you decide to head back to Heights Alliance rather than try to do any training. Hopefully, skipping one day won't hurt you in the long run. While you originally planned to go straight inside, the sight of several cats waiting for you outside the dorm compels you to sit on the front steps, so you can pet the adorable felines. As you're doing this, you let your mind wander back to the meeting you just left. You still can't believe Aizawa was willing to put Midoriya and Bakugo together. Obviously, no one can tell for sure just what kind of past the two share, just from watching them interact at school, but you didn't think the underground hero would make a call as bad as that one. Yes, it's true that the two don't get along well, and should learn to work together as classmates. However, what he failed to realize is that Midoriya is always willing to work together with his classmates. The reason this doesn't apply with Bakugo is because the hothead refuses to have anything to do with his childhood friend. Despite having seen their childhood through my visions, I have no idea why Bakugo treats Midoriya so badly. When they were kids, it was because Midoriya was quirkless, but still trying to become a hero regardless of his lack of a quirk. But what about now? You wonder, why does he always get so mad when it comes to Midoriya, even now that Midoriya has a quirk? As far as I can tell, Midoriya never did anything to him to warrant such treatment. Your gaze lowers to the gray cat seated in your lap. As much as I'd like to think there's a chance for them to move past this, it won't happen without some major development on Bakugo's part. He put Midoriya through years of abuse yet sees nothing wrong with his actions. Their relationship won't change until Bakugo recognizes the severity of his past actions. Sighing, you reach to pet the calico cat rubbing against your hip. What's worse is that Midoriya has no intention of calling Bakugo out for what he did. Hell, he even respects Bakugo despite all those years of abuse. Midoriya is way too forgiving for his own good. Unless someone else does something, I don't think things will get any better. They might even become worse if we're not careful. Either you've been sneaking in cats, or you got Kuda to help. I'm willing to bet it's the latter. With a jolt, you're drawn out of your thoughts by the sound of a familiar voice. Looking up, you see Aizawa standing before you with his hands resting in his pockets. Averting your gaze, you reply, I have the right to remain silent. He snorts before moving to take a seat on the steps. Some of the cats move to investigate the new human while the rest stay with you. As long as you're not promising extra credit for it, I don't care what you do. Your shoulders slump with relief once you realize you're not in trouble for cat hoarding. Although, it's not like you actually bring them inside the dorm. The rest of the campus should be free rein since it's not like cats have never sneaked onto the grounds before now. Several minutes pass in silence with the two of you petting the cats. You hope Shiro and Kuro won't be too jealous that their owner will be home late because he spent time petting other cats. This probably isn't the first time he's done this, though, knowing his love of cats, so they're probably used to it. You were mad about me initially putting Bakugo and Midoriya together even before you had your vision. Just by looking at your face, I could tell. His voice makes you jump. When you turn to look at Aizawa, your eyes meet his, and he continues. You know a lot more about those two than the rest of us do. It's because of your visions, isn't it? Nodding, you look away. I had several visions about Midoriya's childhood, so I know they've been like this for a long time. Out of the corner of your eye, you see him pinch the bridge of his nose. I miscalculated. Like you said earlier, I thought they just had a grudge because of the battle trial from the first week of school. I didn't realize there was more to it than just that. A brittle laugh passes your lips. You wouldn't be the first person to make that mistake. Either people don't notice, or they just willingly ignore what's right in front of their eyes. When he narrows his eyes, you just shrug. Adults have been failing those two for years. Their parents can only do so much when they're basically only around their kids when they're at home. Aizawa frowns deeply. You're saying no other teacher has ever tried to correct Bakugo's behavior toward Midoriya. All those years they were in school together, no one ever said anything. You shake your head. Bakugo was never berated for his behavior because of his quirk. They all saw him as this amazing kid who was going to become a powerful hero. They didn't want to risk ruining his future by condemning him for what they considered was just some harmless bullying. His frown morphs into a scowl. They should all have their licenses revoked. By ignoring his bad behavior, they basically encouraged it. Since he was never stopped, he probably thinks what he's doing is okay. Sighing, you absently pet the cat in your lap. I honestly don't think Bakugo realizes just how horrible his actions were. He thinks he's justified for what he did. In his eyes, Midoriya deserved what he got. Aizawa tiredly rubs his eyes. Did something happen that led to Bakugo resenting Midoriya? Or has he always been like this? That's the million-dollar question. Why does Bakugo hate Midoriya so much? As far as I can remember, Midoriya hasn't done anything to deserve being hated so much. They weren't always like that, though. Their relationship started to deteriorate after Bakugo's quirk came in. From that point on, he had his peers and teachers constantly praising him while with Midoriya. Your words trail off. But you know the older man understands what you're implying. While the world brought up the boy with the powerful quirk, it kicked the quirkless Midoriya to the ground again and again, no matter how many times he tried to fight it. The world truly is a cruel and unfair place. After a brief PRD of silence, his eyes come back to you. Why didn't you bring it up sooner? You should know Yua doesn't tolerate that kind of behavior. If we had known, you cut him off before he can finish. If you had known everything he had done, you likely wouldn't have let him stay here. As much as he needs to take responsibility for his actions, punishment like that won't help Bakugo. He needs someone to set him on the right path. Besides, Midoriya asked me to keep quiet about their past. I only spoke up today because I got upset. Aizawa raises an eyebrow at you. He asked you not to report his bully? Snorting, you CCK your head to the side. Is it really that surprising? It's Midoriya we're talking about after all. He's the most forgiving guy I know. Despite what you may think, Midoriya doesn't really even hold a grudge against Bakugo. Hell, he freaking admires him. His eyebrows furrow as his eyes gain a concerned glint. Are you saying Midoriya was fine with the bullying? He didn't see anything wrong with it? You quickly shake your head. I didn't mean it that way. Midoriya knows what Bakugo did was wrong, but he just doesn't see the point in making a big deal about it. That's why he hasn't ever told anyone about what was done to him. Midoriya sincerely wants Bakugo to become a hero and doesn't want to do anything to prevent him from accomplishing that. The tension in the underground hero's frame eases a fraction. He massages his forehead as he sighs. This just keeps getting worse. I can't believe their relationship was allowed to get this DMN bad. Something needs to be done. They can't continue going on like this. Your gaze drops down to the cat in your lap as you bite your lip. I know. I tried talking to Bakugo after the sports festival, and it seemed like he was willing to consider my advice. But that was about being a hero in general. I don't know what to do about his relationship with Midoriya. Just being around him makes Bakugo lose his cool more often than not. You're doing more than you think. When you give the older man a surprised look, he shrugs. You've made your feelings known to Bakugo when it comes to his treatment toward Midoriya. That's why he knows to let up when you're around. It may seem like a small thing, but you're letting him know that not everyone will allow him to do as he pleases. Now that I know more about the situation, I'll keep a closer eye on the two of them from now on. While you're grateful that Aizawa wants to help the boys, you wonder what exactly he can do since technically nothing has happened. He can't get on to Bakugo for punching Midoriya since they won't be paired up thanks to your interference. How do you plan on going about this when Bakugo technically hasn't done anything really bad to Midoriya since the battle trial at the beginning of the semester? He scratches his chin. We can't just suddenly bring it up since Bakugo will be suspicious about how we know about his childhood. He'll just think Midoriya finally snitched, which would cause Midoriya even more trouble. I'll have to think about this more, but for now, I'm going to start adding more lesson plans that emphasize the importance of teamwork. Might throw in some anti-bullying if I can work it in and make it go along well with the lesson. Unfortunately, that's probably the only way the situation can be handled right now since Midoriya won't ever make a complaint against Bakugo. The only evidence of the bullying that Aizawa has is your visions. He can't really do much with just the words of a technically unrelated third party. It would also be bad if Bakugo found out that you had visions of their childhood since he'd start wondering why you had those visions. That could lead to him accidentally finding out about Midoriya's connection to All Might if you're not careful. Aizawa rises to stand after gently removing the cat from his lap. Shoving his hands into his pockets, the older man turns his head in your direction. If you receive any more visions about those two, let me know. If their behavior gets any worse, I'll need to use a more direct approach. Nodding, you move to stand, so you can go inside to start preparing dinner. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu are likely waiting for you if they haven't already started cooking. Before you can open the door, the underground hero's voice stops you. Midoriya's injury from the exam. Do you think that pain will transfer to you like with your other visions? You pause to consider that question before eventually giving him a shrug. Knowing my luck, I'll say yes. Hopefully, it won't last that long since Recovery Girl heals him up quickly after the exam ends. Unlike the other injuries I've prevented, his won't last for very long, so I'm hoping it'll be the same for me. The corners of his lips tug downwards. If you come to watch the exam, stay with Recovery Girl. Spine injuries are serious, so you shouldn't take it lightly. Smiling, you playfully salute him. Yes, sir. Aizawa rolls his eyes before turning to walk away. Before he can get too far, you suddenly recall your behavior at today's meeting, which prompts you to call out to him. I'm sorry for getting so upset during the meeting. I know it wasn't very professional of me. I let my emotions get the better of me. I won't let it happen again. He comes to a stop before looking at you from over his shoulder. While it was unprofessional, it's not like you said anything wrong. In that situation, I was the person who was in the wrong. I misjudged the situation and almost made my students suffer because of it. I'm glad you spoke up. Thanks to you, I have a better grasp of the situation, so I can better handle things from now on. With that, the older man continues to head for the entrance gate, acting as if he didn't just drop a bombshell on you. Of all the things he could say, you weren't expecting him to actually be appreciative of what you said during the meeting. While you do think you did the right thing, you thought he'd be mad because of how you did it. Not many people take kindly to having their decisions questioned, especially when they have so much more experience in comparison. By all means, he was under no obligation to listen to you. But once the older man realized just how bad Midoriya and Bakugo's relationship was, he understood that he made the wrong choice and was willing to accept your suggestion. Aizawa never tried to make excuses for himself. He even flat out admitted he read the situation wrong. You wonder how many other teachers would react like that. Your expression softens as you turn to enter the dorm. He really is a good teacher. Of all the teachers I could end up working with, I'm glad it was Aizawa-san. Really, really glad. The next week passes by with you helping some of your students do some last-minute cramming before the written portion of the final exam. Any student with academic troubles either ends up coming to you for after-school tutoring or to Yaoyorozu. The dark-haired girl practically sparkles anytime one of her classmates asks her for help, which you find extremely adorable. Much to your surprise, Kirishima goes to Bakugo for help, and the blonde actually allows it. Either the redhead is just that charismatic, or the blonde is actually beginning to soften up around his classmates. You really hope it's the latter. Because of all the tutoring, you have to cut back on your training, but since Shinsu has his own finals to deal with, the two of you just decide to wait until they're over before meeting back up at the fitness center. Thankfully, Aizawa doesn't mind this decision since he agrees that preparing for final exams is more important. While Ashido and Kaminari are the main two who come to you for tutoring, Tokoyami, thanks to Dark Shadow's interference, also gets involved in your study sessions. Yaoyorozu also takes advantage of sharing a dorm with you by coming to you anytime she has a question. Since he doesn't really need your help, Todoroki doesn't ask you questions about his schoolwork. Rather, you end up being the one quizzing him about his studies. You don't know how it happened, but somehow, you ended up making a deal with the boy that if he answers all your questions correctly, you'll make him a soba bento to bring for lunch. As a result, the lucky boy gets his favorite food for lunch the whole week before the final exam. Aoyama, like Ashido and Kaminari, is another student you often tutor. Although, rather than him ask you for help, you have to be the one to initiate it for some reason. He'll always act like he's fine, but as soon as you ask if he wants some help, the blonde immediately says yes. Maybe he's worried he'll look uncool if he asks. It's during one of your tutoring sessions with Aoyama that you remember wanting to try making some French cuisine for the boy. That's why the day before the written exam you go to the grocery store with Todoroki in order to buy the supplies you need. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu become your taste testers as you learn how to make eclairs. Thankfully, the kids don't seem to mind. Yaoyorozu is really happy with this development, claiming the sugar is a nice pick-me-up after all the studying she's been doing. Of course, Todoroki keeps a blank look on his face the whole time, but he does say he likes the taste. So, you consider that a win in your book. While you originally intended to make just enough for Class 1A to reward them for all their studying, you then remember that Class 1B is in the same situation as them. You did tell Momo that you'd support his class as well, so it's only fair that you make enough for everyone, and that's how you end up with over 50 eclairs. Fortunately, Yaoyorozu and Todoroki are more than willing to help you carry the containers to the teacher's lounge. You'll deliver them to the students after the exam is over since you don't want to risk distracting the class. All the teachers are delighted when you reveal that the extra ones are for them. Present Mike and Midnight especially. They were willing to eat all the extras if the other teachers didn't hurry and grab some for themselves, much to your amusement. Of course, Aizawa rolls his eyes when he finds out what you did. However, that doesn't stop him from trying one for himself, a fact that makes you grin. As he's eating, the underground hero tells you that you will remain in the teacher's lounge sorting through paperwork, while he sits in with the class as they take their exam. You're not surprised, of course, since it's not like the class needs more than one teacher to oversee them. When it comes time for Aizawa and Vlad King to leave for their respective classrooms, the BLD hero grabs the container holding the eclairs for Class 1B, so he can take them with him, unlike Aizawa who leaves Class 1A's eclairs with you. While the silver-haired hero's actions surprise you, you figure none of Vlad King's students will actually try to question him, so there's probably nothing to worry about on that end. When the written exam finally ends, Aizawa sends you a text, letting you know, so you can head that way with the eclairs. As soon as you walk into the classroom with the Tupperware of eclairs, every eye falls on you. Considering the curious looks on their faces, that must mean Yaoyorozu and Todoroki kept quiet about your surprise like you asked them to. Right after you set the Tupperware down on Aizawa's desk, Ashido surprises you by springing out of her seat and tackling you with a hug. "Sensei, I did it. I survived. Thank you so much." Much to your amusement, Kaminari quickly follows the pink-haired girl's example. "Seriously, you're a total lifesaver, Sensei. For once in my life, I didn't feel completely hopeless when taking a test. I think I actually did well on it for the first time in my life. Thank you. I owe you my life." With a laugh, you return their hugs and give them both a squeeze. "I'm happy for you both. Although, I'm honestly not that surprised since I had complete faith in both of you. I knew you guys could do it if you put your minds to it." While Ashido and Kaminari stare up at you, looking completely touched, Ida makes a chopping motion with his hand. "Ashido-kun, Kaminari-kun, I understand you're longing to thank Unsensei for her help, but class is still in session. Your behavior is very disruptive. Please return to your desks at once." Pouting, Ashido and Kaminari reluctantly do as the class president asks, while some of the students quietly snicker. Once they're both back in their seats, you open the Tupperware. "All right. I made you guys eclairs to celebrate the end of the written exam. Who wants one?" Immediately, every hand rises high in the air, with the exception of Bakugo who just barely lifts his in comparison. Several students are grinning broadly as they eagerly wave their hands back and forth. Me. I want one." "Unsensei, you're the best." Grinning, you walk around to each desk, allowing every student to reach in and grab an eclair. You start with Aoyama, who's staring at you with wide eyes. You give him a wink. "I don't have much experience cooking French cuisine, but hopefully, you'll like them. Yaoyorozu and Todoroki said they tasted all right when they taste-tested them for me." Yaoyorozu quickly nods her head. "They're really good. We ate a lot, didn't we, Todoroki-kun?" He blinks. "I think you ate a lot more than I did, but I did like the ones I tried." She flushes in embarrassment at his response while several students grin at her. Others like Kaminari and mind to complain about them getting to try your food first. Directing your attention back to Aoyama, you see the soft smile on his face as he takes an eclair. "If these are even half as wonderful as you, mademoiselle, then I'm sure they'll be perfect. Merci." As you move the Tupperware toward Ajiro, you catch the way Aoyama's face brightens after taking a bite of his eclair. You get a warm feeling in your sin at the sight. It's not long until every eclair is passed out, and the students all appear to be greatly enjoying their rewards. This includes Dark Shadow, who popped up when you arrived at Tokoyami's desk. The Quirk was very happy that you made one for him too. Not long after everyone starts eating, Minta suddenly slams his hands on his desk, gaining everyone's attention. "I just realized something. Because Todoroki and Yaoyorozu live with Sensei in the dorm, they always get to eat her home cooking." Everyone pauses to consider those words, and then, Ashido, Kaminari, and Shiro start complaining about how unfair that is. Ida quickly intervenes before the whining gets too out of hand. Realizing Aizawa has been awfully quiet, you turn to look at the desk and see him asleep in his sleeping bag. Guess he fell asleep while you were handing the food out, and you just didn't notice. Not long after that, the bell rings, signaling the end of the PRD. Just as you and Aizawa leave the classroom, you get a text. Your eyes widen in surprise when you see it's from Vlad King. While you know that all the teachers have your number, and you likewise have theirs, you never expected to receive a text from any of them besides Aizawa, Nedzu, All Might, Present Mike, and Midnight. For some reason, he wants you to come by the 1B classroom. Maybe it's about the eclairs. Deciding there's only one way to find out, You part ways with Aizawa after explaining the text to him. A few minutes later, you arrive at your destination. Since the door is already open, you decide to go ahead and enter. Seconds later, a body tackles you, nearly knocking you to the floor. Witty-aid, you look down to see a familiar pair of horns. Tsunatori? Tsunatori beams as she starts chattering excitedly in English. The eclair was so delicious. Sensei. That was the first time I had home cooking since coming to Japan. Thank you so much. Pony, you shouldn't tackle Unsensei like that. You almost knocked her over. Kendo chides as she walks over to the two of you. The horned girl immediately releases you and apologizes. Amused, you reach out to pat her head. It's fine. I'm glad to hear you liked the eclairs. Liked it? Ifc-kin inhaled mine, it was so good. Oase looked like he was gonna cry when he realized he had already eaten all of his. Shut it. Kaibara, don't act like you weren't FC-kin sad when yours was gone. Your amusement grows as the two boys bicker back and forth. They must have been really hungry if they were that sad about finishing their eclairs. For some reason, when your eyes later fall on Monoma, he averts his gaze. Is it just your imagination, or are his cheeks looking a little red? You probably made some for one or two, huh? Kendo gives him an exasperated look, but before she can scold him, you respond, yep. I wanted to reward them for their strong work. Plus, since Aoyama is from France, I wanted to give French cuisine a try. You walk over to the blonde's desk and flick him on the forehead, making him wince. I made some for you guys too since I knew you were all working strong like 1A. If I were to make something for one class, I figured it was only fair that I make it for the other class as well. His eyes widen in response to your words. Due to the close proximity, you realize his face actually is red, and your eyes weren't just playing tricks on you earlier. Concerned, you lay your hand on his forehead and lean closer to him. Monoma starts stuttering as the flush on his cheeks darkens. "Debu, what are you doing?" A frown forms on your lips. "You're looking really red, Monoma. Are you feeling all right? All that studying didn't give you a fever, did it? Maybe you should go see recovery girl." Your worry increases when his face gets even redder. That can't be healthy. Before you can say anything else, however, you hear several people start snickering in the background. When you pull away from the blonde, you see that the majority of his classmates have their hands clasped against their mouths, as if trying to contain their laughter. Meanwhile, Monoma has decided to hide his face in his hands, much to your confusion. Takage grins at your puzzled expression. "No need to worry about Monoma, sensei. He's fine. He's just a little flustered." Little is an understatement. Tsubaraba chortles. He's redder than a tomato. Tetsu is one of the few students who doesn't even bother trying to contain his amusement as he guffaws at his classmate's remark. Bondo and Kodai are the only students who don't appear like they're seconds away from busting a gut. Although, you admit you're not really good at reading the former due to his lack of facial expressions. Monoma scowls at his classmates. "Shut up, I am not, it's just the summer heat, that's all." That's when you get an idea. "If that's the case, want me to SQR you with my water gun? That might help." Everyone's laughter increases at your suggestion while the copycat's scowl deepens. "No, thank you." Realizing he obviously doesn't want your help, you just shrug. "All right, suit yourself. I know a lot of the WANA students like when I do it, so I thought I'd offer you the same service." Shishida gives you a perplexed look. "They like to be shot with your water gun?" Honuki rubs his chin thoughtfully. "That actually sounds like a good idea for outside training, especially when the heat picks up." Tetsu grins excitedly. "Do you shoot them with the same setting you did with Kirishima?" You snort. "Of course not. No one wants to be shot by a DMN hydro pump. Kirishima is the only one who asks for that." He pumps his fist into the air. "Next time shoot me. If Kirishima can do it, then no way am I backing down." Amused, you give him a nod. "All right. I'll remember that the next time we have a joint training exercise." After saying that, you find yourself looking for Vlad King since you figure you should make sure he doesn't mind this agreement. This leads to you finally realizing that the BLD hero isn't even in the room. Did he call you here just because the students wanted to thank you for the eclairs? In that case, you'll just talk to him when you return to the teacher's lounge, which you should probably start heading for since the next PRD will be starting soon. After you tell the students your plans, several of them, who hadn't yet spoken, quickly pass along their thanks as you head for the door. When you hear Tsunatori thank you again for the eclairs, you remember what she said earlier about home cooking and immediately pause. You turn from your place at the door and look between her and Rin. "If I remember right, you two are foreign exchange students, right? I'm sure it's strong going so long without eating meals from your own countries, so if you're ever feeling homesick, you can always come to me for a meal request. I like cooking, and it's fun trying new types of dishes." Both students stare at you with obvious surprise. Once she gets over her surprise, Tsunotori claps her hands together excitedly. Really? The corners of your lips tug upwards. Sure. Just let me know, and I'll give whatever meal you suggest a shot. I can't promise it'll be as good as it is back home, but I'll do my best. Rin bows his head. You are too kind, Sensei. I greatly appreciate you offering to do that for us. Thank you. Away sighs longingly. Now, I'm wishing I was a foreigner. I want free food too. Kamakiri shakes his head. I don't think that's how it works. Shiozaki clasps her hands together. Remember, gluttony is a sin, a waste sin. You should be more careful with how you act. He scowls at her while Kaibara snorts at his expense. Meanwhile, Fukadashi is also laughing as lol pops up repeatedly on his speech bubble. That's when you remember the tracking device Yaoyorozu made for you, and how you were hoping to connect it to something, so you could secretly wear it. Oasis Quirk would be perfect for that. Since he likes your cooking, maybe you can ask for his help in exchange for food. You'll have to try asking him later. At that moment, the bell rings, so you quickly bid the students goodbye. Several of them wave back, including Monoma, who does so while keeping his eyes averted. Hopefully, he really doesn't have a fever, and he'll be feeling all right for the practical exam. Both classes will be having their practical exams tomorrow, with one going first. You're excited to see how everything will turn out, especially with the two pairs you played a part in selecting. I'm not really worried about Midoriya and Yaoyorozu since I know they'll get along fine. I just hope Bakugo and Todoroki will be able to get along. I don't think anything could be as bad as Bakugo being paired with Midoriya, so I have high hopes for them. After you think that, you find yourself thinking about your vision of the practical exam and how these new team-ups will result in you preventing Midoriya from suffering a serious injury at All Might's hand. You grimace when you remember what pain is in store for you. One day, you'd like for an interesting event to happen that doesn't lead to you taking a trip to the infirmary. Is that really too much to ask? The next day, you find yourself standing awkwardly to the side in the parking lot where UI keeps its buses, watching as the teachers participating in the practical portion of Class 1A's final exam explain to your students what their exam will entail. You're off to the side because you don't want the kids to mistakenly believe you're going to be one of the teachers fighting. While you think it's unlikely any of them will make that mistake, you do catch Minta eyeing you fearfully after it's announced the students will be fighting the teachers, much to your amusement. Another thing that amuses you is the way present Mike has been discreetly giving Jiro and Kuda anxious looks. Guess he's still worried about your vision after all. What's even funnier about this is the fact that Jiro and Kuda actually approach you before the kids set off for their exams. When you notice the frown she's wearing, you ask Jiro what's wrong, which leads to her asking, "Is present Mik-sensei all right?" His face looks normal, but his heartbeat is crazy fast compared to the other teachers. And Kuda thinks he's been giving us strange looks too. While Kuda quickly nods his head to support her claim, you take a moment to suppress your urge to laugh before finally replying. He's all right. I think he's just a little nervous about a vision I had that I won't tell him about. Jiro tilts her head curiously. Is there a reason why you won't tell him? He seems pretty shaken up about it. I feel kinda bad for him. Kuda appears to feel the same way, which is highly ironic since he's the one who will be the cause of his teacher's future trauma. You chuckle. I have a good reason for not telling him, I promise. There are just some things about the future you can't reveal right away. Thankfully, they don't push the matter, so after you wish them good luck, they head off to the bus that present Mike will be driving. When you notice him looking in your direction, you give the vocal hero a cheerful wave and receive a pout in return. Hopefully, he won't hold a grudge against you for not warning him in advance. You already feel bad enough as it is. After that, you head off to where Recovery Girl will be stationed during the exam. Unsurprisingly, the heroine was not pleased when she found out about what All Might did in your vision. You don't think anyone but her could get away with smacking the symbol of peace with a cane. He took it like a man, though, which you had to give him props for. After taking a seat in the chair Recovery Girl was kind enough to prepare for you, you lean back and examine the wall of monitors before you that will be broadcasting a live video feed of Class 1A's battles. A grin forms on your lips, and so it begins. As you predicted, all the teams aside from the original Bakugo Midoriya team were well planned. For the most part, everyone ends up working really well together. Unfortunately, the Kaminari Ishido and Sato Kirishima teams fail their exams. Much to your surprise, Zero passes out relatively early during his team's exam thanks to Midnight's quirk, but Maita manages to trap her all on his own, resulting in their team's win. Knowing Aizawa, however, you suspect poor Zero will be lumped with the four that failed. Much to your delight, Midoriya and Yaoyorozu really do end up being the perfect team. With their combined ingenuity and tactical prowess, they are eventually able to capture Aizawa thanks to the use of flash bombs and restraints made by the dark-haired girl. Midoriya was in charge of distracting the teacher while his teammate made all the necessary preparations. However, Yaoyorozu was quick to aid him anytime he was in a pinch, so they managed to successfully keep themselves from getting captured since they could easily swap jobs whenever necessary. As soon as the underground hero was where they wanted him, they sprung their trap. It was honestly really entertaining to watch. You're sure Aizawa is just as proud as you are of their victory. Unfortunately, Todoroki and Bakugo, on the other hand, are something else entirely. Those two end up butting heads almost as much as Bakugo and Midoriya did in your vision, which catches you by surprise. Sure, Bakugo isn't the biggest fan of Todoroki, but you really thought he would handle teaming up with the ice user better than he handled being partnered with Midoriya. Obviously, you were wrong. Thankfully, they're not both at each other's throats, so things aren't as bad as they could be. As expected, Bakugo is the source of all the hostility going on before you, while Todoroki is being his usual stoic self. Is it just your imagination, or is Bakugo even more on edge around Todoroki than usual? If so, you wonder what the reason could be for this sudden development. After all, nothing has happened as of late between the two that you think would warrant such hostile behavior from Bakugo. Well, besides the incident that happened last month when the Isamu Academy students visited UA for the day and joined Class 1A for a training exercise, Bakugo and Todoroki butted heads that day after your quirk's drawback caused you to take the pain Midoriya would have felt if you hadn't protected him from Bakugo, who had tried to attack his childhood friend after losing his temper. Still, that was weeks ago, and Bakugo hasn't acted out of the ordinary since then. Surely, if that incident was the cause behind all this, then he would have started showing signs of this kind of hostility toward Todoroki sooner. That's why you can't help but wonder if you're just overthinking things, and he's just in a really bad mood today. Fortunately, things eventually do get better. You're not sure what kind of conversation transpired between your students since the cameras weren't able to catch what was said, but the shift in Bakugo's behavior that occurs about halfway through the exam after the two boys temporarily take a break from attacking All Might in order to talk is unmistakable. Rather than continuously attacking All Might head-on by himself, Bakugo begins working together with Todoroki, and as a result, they manage to escape All Might after a lot of strong effort on both their parts. Strangely enough, the strategy they used was a lot like what you saw in your vision, just with Todoroki in place of Midoriya. It's around that time that your back begins to throb with a vengeance. Even the smallest movements make you want to cringe from the pain. Thankfully, before that particular match, Recovery Girl made you lie down on one of the infirmary beds since she expected the pain would be coming soon. So, not long after the pain appears, you get some much-needed pain reliever and fall asleep on the bed once the medication kicks in. Just as you drift off, you find yourself thinking, looks like I'll be missing the rest of the exams. DMN, I wanted to see Jiro and Kuta's match live. Oh well, hopefully the videos will be able to do it justice. Instead of Recovery Girl like you expect, you wake up to see Aizawa and Present Mike sitting at your bedside. As soon as your eyes open, the blonde points at you with a scowl. You, immediately realizing why he's upset, you grin sheepishly. It wouldn't have been fair for the students. I'm sorry, Mixon. I do feel bad about it. His scowl morphs into a pout. That was terrifying. I can't believe they sent a whole bug army after me. I'll be having nightmares for weeks. Weeks, I tell you. Aizawa rolls his eyes. You'll get over it. Like she said, you survived. Present Mike smacks a hand across his friend's CH Saint. And like I said, what about my mental health? I'm traumatized now. Damn it. Just like last time, the other hero just shrugs. Meh. Snorting, you slowly rise into a seated position. Thankfully, like you hoped, the pain from earlier is gone, replaced with a lingering soreness. I'll cook you something to make up for the trauma. Mixin. He lowers his sunglasses and gives you a hopeful look. And treat me to yakiniku? The underground hero elbows his friend. Don't try to get free food out of this. She doesn't owe you anything. An amused grin forms on your lips as the blonde winces. It's fine, Aizawa-san. It's not like I spend the money from my paycheck often anyway since the school covers the dorm groceries. Yakiniku actually sounds really good right now. Present Mike cheers excitedly. All right, we're going out to eat. You're coming too, right, Shada? No. Aizawa's reply comes so quickly you can't help but laugh in response. Meanwhile, the vocal hero pouts as he drapes an arm across his friend's shoulders. Ah, come on, Shada. We can even invite Midnight. It'll be fun, just like our last shopping trip together. The underground hero gives him a deadpan look. We obviously have very different views of what's considered fun. Despite his words, Aizawa does end up agreeing to go out to eat with you and his two friends thanks to a lot of persuasion on Present Mike's part. After that's decided, you send Todoroki and Uraraka a text message, telling them that you won't be making dinner tonight. They should be fine on their own considering their own cooking skills, so you're not too worried about them. Once that's taken care of, Present Mike changes out of his hero costume into the spare clothes he keeps at school. Aizawa naturally remains in his current attire since he pretty much always wears his hero costume. After the blonde has changed clothes, the three of you meet up with Aoyama, who unsurprisingly was all for the idea of going out to eat tonight, and proceed to head for the nearest yakiniku restaurant. Although you probably should have been expecting it, you're surprised when alcohol gets brought into the mix not long after you all start eating. Still, you don't mind since a drunk Aoyama is a funny sight. However, there is one downside since she keeps asking you to try these weird CCK tales that she's been making. Aizawa scolds her every time. Since you don't know for sure if you're actually legally able to drink, he wants you to stay away from alcohol for now. You don't really mind since you do think you're under the legal age for drinking. At the very least, you don't remember ever trying it, so either it's because you couldn't, or because you never had any interest in it. While Aoyama is an affectionate drunk who likes to mix her own drink concoctions, Yamada is, to no one's surprise, a loud drunk. He pretty much loses any volume control he previously had once he drinks enough. Originally, you start off sitting in between the two energetic heroes, but Aizawa eventually has you move to sit by him when they start getting overly affectionate with you. He pretty much spends the majority of the night keeping his two friends under control. Considering how his current behavior is the same as it always is, you would think the underground hero hasn't been drinking like the other two, but you know you've seen him go through a few glasses of alcohol. Maybe he's one of those types that's not really affected by alcohol. Much to your surprise, Aoyama held out a long time before she started dealing out the strange CCK tales. The only reason she's drunk now is because she kept downing so many glasses. Eventually, the R-rated heroine does manage to force Yamada to drink one of her specially made CCK tales, which promptly knocks him out. Aizawa decides to call it a night after that, so you help him SCRT the other two pro heroes to a taxi, so they can head home. Once the taxi is out of sight, you turn toward the underground hero. If you'd rather head straight home, I don't mind walking back to the dorm on my own, Aizawa-san. I know Yua isn't too far from here, so I should be alright. He shakes his head before motioning for you to follow him. The last time you were on your own you got kidnapped. I'm not taking any chances. I'll walk you back. Increasing your stride, you move to walk beside him. Thank you. I'm sorry for the trouble. Aizawa yawns into his hand. There's no reason for you to apologize for something you can't control. After he says that, silence fills the air as you both walk back to Yua and lasts for a while. Of course, you're not surprised, considering how the older man typically is. That's why you're caught off guard when he does eventually speak to break the silence. Thank you. You jump at the sound of his voice before turning to look at him with wide eyes. What for? I haven't done anything worth thanking. His eyes meet yours. You helped with the final exam. It was just like you said. Bakugo doesn't really get along with anyone. The beginning of his match with Todoroki was proof of that. It really was unfair of me to put Midoriya with him, just because the hostility between them was more noticeable. Shoving his hands into his pockets, he moves his gaze to look forward. I started paying closer attention to them after the meeting we had about the exam. It annoys me that it took me this long to notice that Midoriya will flinch sometimes if Bakugo gets too close. The same goes for whenever he's close by whenever Bakugo is using his quirk. He's also more likely to stammer when Bakugo is staring at him. Why did it take me this long to notice? The corners of your lips tug downwards. It's not like you're the only one. I don't think anyone else at school has noticed. I'm surprised none of the kids have ever asked Midoriya about his relationship with Bakugo. A scowl forms on his lips. I'm their homeroom teacher. It's my responsibility to notice these kinds of things. I wouldn't have allowed them to sit so close together if I had known how bad their relationship was. At this point, it's too late to move them since that'll lead to the students asking too many questions. You rub the back of your neck as you sigh. Well, by the looks of it, Midoriya doesn't seem too bothered by the seating arrangement at this point. While this may be strong to believe, they were actually worse in middle school, so Midoriya isn't as nervous around Bakugo as he used to be. He huffs in response. That doesn't really make me feel better. Around that time, the two of you arrive at the school's entrance gate. Even though you offer to walk the rest of the way by yourself, Aizawa insists on walking you to the dorm. Apparently, you're just that big of a trouble magnet, so he's not taking any chances despite you now being on school grounds. Even though you originally assumed that alcohol didn't affect the underground hero, you're starting to have some doubts. It seemed a little strange that he just thanked you out of nowhere, and he has been awfully honest with you since you both started walking rather than reserved like he usually is. Maybe alcohol causes him to loosen up. Just as you both arrive at Heights Alliance, Aizawa suddenly remarks, because I'm drunk, I'm about to say something I normally wouldn't. Whatever you do, don't tell me what I said the next time you see me. All you can do is stare. Okay, he turns to face you. I never thanked you for what you did back at the beginning of the semester. Thanks to you, none of us teachers were seriously injured at the SJ, so we were able to properly protect the students. You also made sure help arrived in time. Even though I know you don't think so, you've been a big help looking out for the students. You're a good ta. So, thanks. You can't decide if you want to cry because of his kind words or just gape in shock. Never in a million years did you expect to get thanked like this by Aizawa, of all people. Instead of giving you a chance to respond, the older man promptly turns around to walk off, as if to act like this never happened. Before he can get away, you reach out to grab his sleeve, forcing him to stop. Rather than look up at the man, you keep your gaze on the ground. Thank you for saying that. I'm not used to being treated like I'm actually useful. Before coming here, it was the opposite. Despite my amnesia, I can remember that much. What you said to me in your apartment after the SJ attack made me really happy. It was the first time someone told me that I was useful. As far as I can remember, that's all I've ever really wanted. Despite your embarrassment, you felt like you had to say it since he went out of his way to thank you. Besides, if you're lucky, Aizawa won't remember anything you just said come tomorrow morning anyway. A hand drops onto your head, making you look up in surprise. That's when you see the unusually soft expression on his face. He gently ruffles your hair. You don't need to thank me for just stating the obvious. Like I said before, whoever told you that you weren't useful was wrong. Besides, it's not like I'm the only one who thinks that way. Just ask anyone here who's met you, and they'll all tell you the same thing. Tears start to gather in your eyes, but you immediately blink them away. I still want to thank you, though. Even though I know I've been a handful, you've been looking out for me all this time. I really appreciate it. Aizawa snorts as he pulls his hand away. One more troublemaker for me to watch over won't kill me. You're at least better behaved compared to others I have to deal with. You grin cheekily. Does that mean I'm one of your favorites? The underground hero rolls his eyes. I don't play favorites. With that, he takes his leave, and you head inside the dorm. After a quick shower, you climb into bed and focus your gaze on your ceiling after resting your head on your pillow. A warm smile rises to your lips. Coming to Yua really was the best thing to ever happen to me. While I've had to deal with a lot of pain over the last few months, I don't have any regrets about coming to warn the school. I'm so glad I'm here. Your smile grows as your eyes slowly drift shut. There's no place I'd rather be. As soon as she sees you the next day in homeroom, Jiro grins. The vision you had that upset present Mixensei was of our exam, wasn't it? A matching grin forms on your lips. Yep. While I didn't tell him what I saw, he was there when I had the vision, so he got worried based off my facial expressions. Even though I told him he'd survive, he wouldn't calm down. She snickers into her hand as your gaze moves to Kuda, who rubs the back of his neck sheepishly. Your grin grows. Kuda, you're such a badass. Remind me to never mess with you. He flushes a bright red as he frantically waves his hands, as if trying to deny your words. No matter what he says, it doesn't change the fact that he sixed a whole insect army on present Mike. Despite his cute disposition, Kuda might actually be one of the scariest students in the class. In contrast to you and Jiro, who are both enjoying Kuda's flustered reaction, all 4 students who failed the practical exam are looking very despondent. Zero has an anxious expression on his face since he doesn't know if he passed or failed. The poor kids really do think they won't get to go to the summer camp. When Aizawa arrives, he announces who failed before revealing that everyone will, in fact, be going to the camp. The 5 students cheering quickly fades when the underground hero states that they'll be having supplementary lessons at the camp, so it'll actually be stronger than normal summer school. You shake your head. Rip, you poor souls. Maybe you could make the situation better by offering to help tutor them during those sessions. You'd like to be able to help during the camp since you were told you'd be coming along. After telling the poor kids about the supplementary lessons, Aizawa hands out everyone's camp manuals, which state what all the students will need for the trip. It's as he's doing this that your quirk suddenly activates. At first, your vision briefly shows you the students discussing going shopping together for supplies during their day off tomorrow. Then, the scenery quickly changes to that of the mall where they'll be going. All you can do is stare in horror as Shigaraki approaches Midoriya after the boy gets left on his own. The villain grabs a hold of your student before he can even realize who Shigaraki is. The last thing you see before the vision ends is Shigaraki escorting Midoriya somewhere with his hand almost completely wrapped around your student's neck. After your sight returns to normal, you see most of the students watching you with concern while Aizawa's eyes are narrowed. Immediately, your gaze whips toward Midoriya, who jerks in surprise. Midoriya, before you can say another word, a familiar pain drills into your head with a force even worse than usual. Even though you've barely said anything, the drawback has kicked into high gear, and you have no clue why. Is this event that important? Despite the implications, you still try to speak only for the pain to increase tenfold, making you whimper as your eyes fall shut. You clench your teeth tightly in an attempt to prevent any more pained noises from escaping. Several voices are talking simultaneously, most likely to you, but you can't bring yourself to concentrate enough to actually discern what they're saying. The pain is just too much for you. And just like that, it disappears all at once, like magic. The familiar blank feeling in your mind makes you realize Aizawa must have used his quirk. As expected, when you pull your face out of your hands, you see him approaching you with red eyes and floating hair. When I deactivate my quirk, don't try to talk about your vision, alright? While a part of you wants to argue, his glare quickly changes your mind, so you meekly nod your head. That's when you notice all the students staring at you with worried expressions. For some reason, Midoriya, Ida, Yaoyorozu, and Todoroki are even standing up at their desks. Your memories of the recent vision return as soon as Aizawa blinks. You have to bite your lip to prevent yourself from saying anything despite how much you want to. Meanwhile, the standing students slowly return to their seats once they see you're no longer in pain. Kaminari stares at you with wide eyes. Holy CRP. Does your quirk always hurt you that badly? You looked like you were in a crazy amount of pain, sensei. With a wince, you weakly shrug. Technically, no. This time was worse than usual. Yaoyorozu clasps her hands together as she frowns worriedly. Maybe you should go see Recovery Girl. You're looking a little pale. You try to give her a reassuring smile. I'm alright. Aizawa-san erased my quirk, so I'm no longer in pain. The vision just caught me by surprise. Minta points a shaking finger at the student sitting in front of him. You were looking all worried and said Midoriya's name before your drawback kicked in. Does that mean something bad is going to happen to him? Just as you open your mouth, Aizawa cuts you off. Don't say anything, His stern gaze then falls on Minta. Minta, when I said she's not allowed to talk about her vision, that also meant no one is allowed to ask her about it. Understand. The grape-haired boy immediately slams his mouth shut and vigorously nods his head, all the while appearing nervous. Meanwhile, Midoriya hasn't stopped looking at you with concern. Unsensei, it's fine if you don't tell me. I don't want you to push yourself on my account. I promise I'll be careful, so you won't have to worry. Bakugo scoffs. City Deku, you don't even know when her vision will take place. If it's not going to happen for a while, you'll probably just forget this even happened and end up screwing yourself over. Tomorrow, nearly everyone jumps at your urgent shout, but your eyes don't leave the green-haired boy. His eyes widen in surprise. It'll happen tomorrow, Aizawa sighs when you nod vehemently. Looks like one-worded hints are fine as long as you don't overdo it. If what you saw is going to happen that soon, and is as bad as you're making it seem, then I guess we can't really put off you talking about your vision. Ashita waves her hand erratically. Oh, I'm good at charades. I should be able to help. Hagakure mirrors the pink-haired girl's movements. Me too, much to your amusement. Several of the other students chime in, saying much the same. Midoriya even has his notebook out, so he can take notes of your short answers in hopes that they might help him figure out what you're trying to convey. The underground hero pinches the bridge of his nose. Just one-worded hints, nothing more, alright? You give him a smile, grateful that he'll allow you to try warning your student. Meanwhile, a lot of the students lean forward into their desks as you give your next hint. Since you think knowing a location is a good start, you decide to go that route. Mall. Midoriya blinks in surprise. I wasn't planning on going to a mall tomorrow. I wonder why I end up there. As everyone considers that question, you hear a finger snap from Hagakure's direction. I know, maybe it's for camp supplies. I was actually thinking of asking everyone after school if they wanted to meet up tomorrow to go shopping together. Kirishima grins. That's a great idea. Doing a class shopping trip sounds like a lot of fun. Jiru shakes her head. Except for the part where something bad obviously happens to Midoriya. The redhead's excitement quickly dwindles. Oh yeah, that makes it a lot less fun. Ajiro frowns as he scratches his head. I wonder what will happen. Does Midoriya somehow get hurt while we're all there? Ada's hand shoots up into the air, and when you call on him, he asks, in your vision, was Midoriya-kun alone when the horrible event occurred, Unsensei? When you nod, a deep frown forms on his face. I do not know how things turned out that way, but I will make sure that Midoriya-kun does not get separated from the group. As the class president, it is my duty to look out for my classmates, so I will make sure nothing happens to him. Siro whistles appreciatively. As expected of our class president. Nicely said. Emergency exit. As much as you'd like to believe things could be fixed that easily, you're not so sure Ida's plan will be enough. What if Shigaraki were to somehow get his hands on both of them instead of just Midoriya? Todoroki tilts his head. Judging by Unsensei's expression, I don't think the problem can be solved that easily, Ida. The best thing to do would probably be to just not go to the mall PRD. Could it be villain attack? Your gaze whips toward Midoriya, who's holding his chin as he stares at his notebook. When he looks up and sees you gaping at him, his eyes grow large. I'm right? All you can do is nod dumbly, unable to believe he guessed so quickly without you even hinting toward the appearance of a villain. Just goes to show that the boy has had way too many experiences with them since it seemed like a plausible answer for him to suggest. Do you know which mall? In. The eerie silence is broken by Aizawa. There's a dangerous glint in his eyes now that he knows how serious the situation really is. When you shake your head, he frowns. If we don't know which mall will be attacked, that means we'll have to consider all the nearby malls as possible targets. I don't know if there are enough forces to properly cover them all. You bring your arms up to form an X. He's worrying about the wrong thing. Shigaraki was the only one who appeared in the vision, and he was dressed casually. It didn't look like that meeting was actually planned. The villain just took advantage of the opportunity presented to him. Kaminari blinks before scratching his head. Okay, I'm lost. What does that mean? She's saying no. Asui taps her chin thoughtfully. Maybe the villain attack isn't what we're thinking it is. Ribbit. Unsensei doesn't appear worried about the fact that she doesn't know the mall's name. Maybe she doesn't think it's important. Grateful for the green-haired girl's observational skills, you give her a thumbs up. Xiaoji tilts his head at your response. Could it be the attack isn't something as grand-scaled as the Usj attack? At his classmate's words, Midoriya jerks in his seat before giving you a witty-eyed look. It wasn't planned. Unlike with the Usj attack, the villains aren't expecting to run into us tomorrow, are they? Nodding your head, you hold up one finger. Shigaraki. Everybody tenses at the mention of the leader of the League of Villains. After a brief PRD of silence, Takoyami asks, does the one finger mean it is just Shigaraki who will be at the mall tomorrow? As you give another thumbs up, Aizawa massages his forehead. So, you're telling me the class just so happens to go to the same mall Shigaraki does, and Midoriya just so happens to run into him while by himself. All you can do is shrug. I was serious when I said Midoriya had a second quirk that makes him a trouble magnet. Midoriya hides his face in his hands as most of his classmates nod in agreement. By the looks of their faces, it appears they're all willing to believe he does, in fact, have a second quirk. Uraraka frowns worriedly. So, will Deku-kun be okay as long as he doesn't go to the mall tomorrow? Is this one of those events that can be avoided? You pause to consider her question before finally replying, I think so. I can't imagine how it would still happen if Midoriya doesn't go there tomorrow. Sato rubs the back of his neck. That's some seriously bad luck, though. Can't believe we were going to end up going to the same mall as the villain's leader. Aoyama elegantly flips his hair. Yes, but thankfully, Unsensei is bon chance for us. So, we have been saved. That's some French I haven't heard before. Since he's responding to Sato, maybe bon chance means something like good luck. Just as you think that, you see Kuda nod in agreement, making you wonder if he understood the French or just guessed like you did. It's at that moment the bell rings, signaling the end of homeroom. You didn't realize it was that time already. That proves just how distracted you were by your vision. After you and Aizawa leave the classroom, he pulls you to a side hallway instead of taking you directly to the teacher's lounge like he usually does. When he notices your confused expression, he sighs, we'll need to tell the principal and the police about your vision. If Shigaraki is going to be out there, they should know in case there's a chance of capturing him. Will you be okay with that? Nervous, you bite your lip. Will I have to leave campus and go to the police station? You don't know why the idea of leaving UM makes you so nervous, especially when you just did it yesterday. Maybe it was because you were with 3 professional heroes at the time, so you felt safe then. Of course, you know the police station will be safe, but for some reason, the idea of more people knowing about you makes you feel uneasy. You've gotten comfortable with everyone at UA, but you don't really know anyone in the police force besides Detective Sakachi. You know he's a nice guy, but what if he or another officer starts asking questions about you that you can't answer? A soft tap to your forehead draws you out of your thoughts. Once he has your attention, Aizawa pulls his finger away. The principal will probably ask the detective to come here. However, it's possible he'll want you to come to the station. If you don't want to, though, I don't think he'll force you. The corners of your lips curve downwards. I really don't think I'll be able to help the police find Shigaraki, Aizawa-san. I wish I could, but malls pretty much all look the same to me. I don't know which one he'll be at. He nods in understanding. Honestly, the chances of finding him are slim to none. However, we still need to share what you know. If you tell Tsukauchi what you told me, he'll be able to tell you're not lying, so hopefully, he won't push the matter. He'll probably just have officers stationed at all the nearby malls. As the two of you begin walking toward the principal's office, Aizawa adds, if you're asked any questions that you know will cause your drawback to take effect, don't answer them. No one will force you. I'll tell him what I already know first, and we'll work from there, okay? At his words, the tension in your frame begins to ease. As long as the underground hero will be there with you, you don't think the situation will be nearly as nerve-wracking as it would be if you were on your own. You're glad you don't have to do this by yourself. Thank you, Aizawa-san. The older man huffs, no need to thank me. You're my ta, so you're my responsibility. Even though we're convinced you're an adult, that doesn't mean you should be left on your own to deal with all this. So, I'll do my part too. A warm smile forms on your lips as you're suddenly reminded of his kind words from last night. You really are a kind person, Aizawa-san. I'm glad I get to be your ta. Rather than respond, Aizawa just averts his gaze. According to Present Mike, that's something his friend often does when he's embarrassed. Instead of outwardly appearing flustered, the underground hero just grows quiet and won't look anyone in the eye. It makes sense considering his personality. Now, you're extra glad you went all out for his lunch bento today. He deserves it. Definitely.